It is 6 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL Chapter 38, Section 18, and the Governor's February 12th, 2022 revised order extending remote participation by all members in any meeting of a public body. This meeting, the Great Barrington Select Board, will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and the parties with a right and a requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. Pursuant to MGL 7C 30A, Section 20F, after notifying the chair of a public body, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of a public body, may transmit the meeting through any medium. At the beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any such recordings. This meeting is being recorded by the town of Great Barrington, by the Berkshire Edge, the Berkshire Eagle, and other members of the public. Any member of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. The listing of agenda items are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may, in fact, be discussed, and other items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. The agenda this evening, I will move things around a little bit towards the end, so people who are not part of the short-term rental discussion don't have to sit through that whole discussion. So I'll move new business up and previous business down, just so everyone's aware. So let's take a roll call vote. Garfield.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Ed.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
And I. All select board members are present. Approval of minutes. We have two sets of minutes. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
So that's April 25th, 2022 and May 3rd, 2022. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I didn't get copies of them, so I'm just going to recuse myself on it.
Okay. Did you want us to wait till the next meeting?
No, doesn't matter.
Okay. So a roll call vote would be Eric.
Aye.
Garfield.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
And I. It's 4 votes in favor. Select board's announcements, statements. Garfield.
Yes, we are speaking of short-term rental tonight.
We are.
All right, I just would like to say that I really want us to push this through, let the town make a decision on this. We've had a lot of controversy and things to talk about, but I really think as proponents of the town folks, I think we should let them make the decision. I think people need to also know this is not meant to cure workforce or affordable housing, but one suggestion of probably many that could be used. It's not meant to be exclusive, but inclusive. And I want everyone to be perfectly clear that this was certainly made with the people of Great Barrington in mind. And I'm a strong proponent of it.
Thank you, Garfield. Eric.
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
Ed.
Nothing.
Lee.
One thing, I just would like to note that I've filed a 23B3 disclosure of appearance of conflict form with the town clerk, and I will be participating in the discussions on short-term rentals tonight as per approval by the Ethics Commission. I also want to do a shout out to an event I saw last night at St. James Place called How Do You Hear a Black Person? It's a free community event, and it was very, very powerful. And I do want to bring up something that was questioned during the event about Rossiter Street and a concern that there isn't paved sidewalks there. So I don't expect to have that discussion tonight, but I would like to make a note that it did come up at this event a few times. And as we all know, Rossiter's a historically Black neighborhood in Great Barrington, and there has been concerns that the repaving of this street did not include fully paved sidewalks with curbs. So I would like to address that, please, at a future meeting. Thank you.
Just as a matter of fact, Fairview Terrace, where I live, used to have sidewalks for part of it, and it was just repaved and all the sidewalks were taken out, and there are no sidewalks there either, so that may make people feel better. It may not.
Thank you.
It also shows I have no pull, which is a good thing. We shouldn't. Town managers report.
Thanks, Steve. I just have a few brief updates for you all this evening. First on my list is Housatonic Waterworks, and this is something I just wanted to share with our attendees. The board is well aware. This board met in executive session with our attorney last Wednesday evening, and as a result of that meeting, I've been asked to research a few questions and report back in about a month. So no date has been scheduled yet for that follow-up meeting, but I assume we will schedule that shortly. And then my last update for this evening, our library director, I just wanted to announce publicly this evening that Amanda DeGeorgis, our library director, has stepped down from her position. She resigned as effective last Friday, and she's relocating to New Mexico to be closer to her family. So I just wanted to take this opportunity tonight to thank her for her years of service to the town and also wish her all the best on her next chapter. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
May I ask one thing of Mark? Mark, can
Of
you
course.
possibly lighten up? I can barely see your face. I'd love to see my town manager's face.
I almost mentioned that. I'm really sorry. One of the lights in my office is not working.
Um,
I'm not doing it intentionally. I have every light in here working, and I'm
I
really
want to read your eyes.
sorry about that, everyone.
Licenses and permits. Emily Williams of Style and Franks for an annual common victualler license at 70 Railroad Street. Do I have a motion? Emily's here, so let's let Emily speak and tell us what she's doing. No, I don't want to do that. Let's see. You got it there, Mark? Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. I got a message that she's using an older version of Zoom, so I had to promote her as a panelist.
No wonder I can do it. Hi, Emily. You
Hi
want to
there.
just give us a few seconds of what you're doing?
Yeah, sure. So good timing for my dogs to bark. So I bought a hot dog cart and I am going to be set up at 70 Railroad Street, which is essentially the address of the triplex. And I met with Richard Stanley, who happens to be a hot dog connoisseur. And so he wants me to, he thinks the best location is for me to be on the path between the triplex and the courtyard. So essentially the road that goes through to Railroad Street. So I will be setting up there. I'm gonna be tweaking my hours as the summer gets busy. So as it stands right now, I'm hoping to launch on May 28th, which is this Saturday at 11 o'clock. So I think my hours are going to be around 11 to 3. And the days of the week, again, as it stands right now, 7 days a week, but I'm going to scale back on, supply and demand.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the annual common victual license at 70 Railroad Street to Emily Williams of
Second.
Style and Franks.
Sorry, second.
Any questions or discussion?
Just, I want to make a point. This is private property, correct?
Correct.
Correct. Correct.
Okay, just right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Food trucks have come up in the past, and I just want to clarify.
Yep. It's
I do have a
yep, private property.
Yes, what I agree with, as the food trucks have come up in the past, and I was wondering why the last time there was a gentleman who had a food truck that he wanted to put in about the Rio area, and I was not involved in politics that much. Why did that fail?
I don't remember it at all. Do you remember, Mark?
In the Rio area, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Cafe Rio?
I don't recall that, to be honest with you.
Okay, I do. I was just curious because here we are. Yes. now, and we're getting ready to approve something similar, and I was wondering why.
Just to clarify, Garfield, I have a food cart, so I don't know if that's a difference, but it's team.
Years ago, before I was on the board, I know the issue of food trucks in town came up, but the issue there was it was in parking spaces in town property. And I think the then board or town meeting, I don't remember which, didn't allow it. That's why I wanted to clarify this is private property. That I don't think that's ever been prohibited.
Yeah, I was on the board then, and it was going to be at the downtown corridor, and they wanted to respect the restaurants down here and not to have them too close to the restaurants. And by the time they got done, there was no place to have them. So I have a motion and a second. A roll call vote, Garfield,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Ed,
Yes.
Lee,
Aye.
and unanimous. Good luck, Emily.
Thank you very much. Come by.
Will
Wow.
do. I'm a hot dog person myself.
Good.
Karen Beckwith of the Great Barrington Fish and Game for a one-day beer and wine license for a party on June 11th, 2022, from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. at 338 Long Pond Road, Housatonic, Mass. Do I have a motion?
I believe Karen's here. Are we letting her speak or?
It's a private party. Karen, do you, I kind of know how this goes. Karen, do you want to say anything?
It's a graduation party.
I make a motion to grant a one-day beer and wine license for a party on June 11th, 2022, from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. on 338 Long Pond Road, Housatonic, to Karen Beckwith of Great Barrington Fish and Game.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
I have a question. I'm Plaza employee. I deliver to the fishing game. Does that preclude me from making a vote?
I always think it's better to be careful, and this is going to pass anyways. It's a private party, so it's up to you, but it seems plausible for you just to recuse yourself and it'll still pass.
I will recuse myself.
Okay, roll call vote, Eric,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
and it's unanimous, 4 votes. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Clinton Church Restoration, Eugenia Sills, Director, for permission to close Elm Court on Friday, June 10th, 2022, between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. You want to just give us a little information?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
We are planning to make an announcement in front of the church, and we would like to request that the street be closed. The event will be at noon and will probably be 60 to 90 minutes max, but we'd like some time to set up and clean up afterwards. This was done for us for an event at the end of 2019, and we're hoping that it can be again. We are aware that we have to keep the street make it easy for emergency vehicles to get through if necessary.
Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to permit the closure of Elm Court on Friday, June 10th, 2022, between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. to Clinton Church Restoration, care of Eugenia Sills.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, it's a roll call vote. Garfield,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
and it's unanimous. Good
Thank
luck,
you.
Eugene.
Thanks very much.
Next is a driveway permit. Joseph Aberdale for permission to install a driveway at 407 North Plain Road. I think Joe's on the line. We may not need him, but it's required that you be here. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to grant the permission to install a driveway at 407 North Plain Road to Joseph Aberdale.
Second.
Any questions? The applicant is on the line. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, roll call vote. Garfield,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
and it's unanimous. Joe, thanks for showing up anyways. It's
Thank you.
gone through. Thanks, Joe. Have a good evening.
Yep.
Mo Guthrie of the Guthrie Center for 5 one-day beer and wine licenses at 2 Van Duzenville Road on June 2nd, 9th, 16th, 23rd, and 30th, 2022, from 6 p.m. to 12 p.m. You want to just tell us what you're doing there, a little free publicity?
Yeah, hi everybody. So the Guthrie Center hosts open mics, or hootenannies as we like to call them, where we invite local artists, musicians, and poets to share the stage at the Guthrie Center and show us their art. And we would like to serve beer and wine at a few of these events.
Do it. I have a hand up, so I will recognize Dave Long. Go ahead, Dave.
I'm sorry, I didn't think you would even pay attention to that until it was later.
Oh, I pay attention to everything, David. Okay, do I have a motion?
I make a motion to grant 5 one-day beer and wine licenses at 2 Van Duzenville Road on June 2nd, June 9th, June 16th, June 23rd, and June 30th from 6 p.m. to 12 p.m. to Mo Guthrie of the Guthrie Center.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? Seeing none. Garfield,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Lee,
Hi.
and I. It's unanimous. Good luck.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it greatly.
Okay, let's see. Next one is a continuation, and is Chris, do you see, or Mark, do you see someone here? Yep.
Yep, all set.
Okay, good. Sam Scott Orchards, 9 Pin Cider Works for a farm winery special license to sell at the farmer's market from May 11th through November 13th, 2022 from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Want to tell us a little bit about what you do and what you're planning to do? Just unmute yourself. Just have to unmute. You've been given permission to speak. We'll give them another second, then we can come back to it if we have to.
Steve, I'm not sure if people at home can see this mics when we open them, but we do have the mic open for James.
And James, if you just unmute yourself, you are, yep, there you go.
Sorry, board. I don't know why I'm raising my hand or anything, so I'll mute myself.
Okay. So that is not who we wanted. There's Jake. That's who you're looking for, Mark. Perfect. Jake, if you want to just tell us a little bit about what you're planning to do at the farmer's market.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Jake Smascott. We have a fruit and vegetable farm in Kinderhook. We attend the Great Barrington Farmers Market. We are also a partner with 9 Pin. So we raise all the apples for their hard cider. And we'd like to sell a hard cider at the farmers market with our produce.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to grant a farm winery special license to sell at the farmer's market from May 11th through November 13th, 2022 from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. to Sam Scott Orchards 9 Pin Cider Works.
Second.
Questions? So I'll ask one, Jake. Will there be sampling?
We will not sample, no.
Okay, that makes it simpler. That was a big question. Anyone else have questions?
I'm just curious, how do establishments get a place at the farmer's market? How did you get that? And does it cost you anything? And you're from out of state, so would Great Barrington benefit from that at all?
So we applied for the market about 3 years ago, and we were accepted. It's through the Great Barrington Farmers Market has their own association that approves the different farms. We grow a lot of different small fruits and vegetables. It's a lot of berries that I think the market was lacking, so they were interested in having us there. So I think that's probably how we got in. It is a competitive market. There's a lot of farms looking to get in there. But we had a good offering, I guess, and we've been very happy there the past couple of years.
Right. Any other questions or comments? Roll call vote. Garfield?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
and I, it's unanimous. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Okay, public hearings. Continuation of Eugene Richard of Price Chopper, 300 Stockbridge Road for a beer and wine package store license. James Cullen, manager. Do I have a motion to reopen the public hearing?
I make a motion to reopen the public hearing of Eugene Richard of Price Chopper for a beer and wine license, package store license.
Second,
Roll call vote. Garfield,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Ed,
yes.
Lee,
Aye.
and I, it's unanimous.
Just a reminder, didn't Garfield recuse? Didn't you?
That's what I was just gonna ask. You were accused on this, right, Garfield?
Oh, yes, thank you.
Yep. Let me just look for something. Before we deliberate, does the board have any questions of Mr. Richard?
No.
Okay, there is someone with their hand up. Frank, is that? Mark, why don't you recognize them? Frank, could you state your name and address, and did you want to speak? You are unmuted. You just have to speak, please. Okay, apparently he's having trouble. Do I have a motion then if we don't have any questions?
A motion, are we deliberating or?
Hold on one second. I just want to make sure there are no other hands up.
Do you want me to open the mic for Frank again?
Yeah, one more time.
Okay.
Frank, just unmute yourself and you can speak. Okay, Mark, I think he's having trouble. So yes, let's deliberate first. We'll close the public hearing and then we'll have a motion. So go ahead. Who would like to speak?
Do we close the hearing first and then deliberate?
Well, it depends if we want to have questions of the attorney. If we're done with questions, we can. It's the board's desire.
I don't really have any questions, just comments, I guess, and statements.
Okay, so a motion to, there's other hands up, so I'd like to recognize people, but we're moving ahead here. So go ahead first with James Manning. So, Mr. Manning.
Yeah, I'm confused. Is this, are we having the discussion on short-term rentals now? For
No,
citizen speak, or after you guys do work?
Okay, so right now we're doing the beer and wine license for Price Chopper.
Oh, I'm sorry, then I'm mute.
Okay,
Sorry.
no problem. And I'll give Frank one more chance because I really want people to be able to speak if they want to. Frank, just unmute yourself and speak. And Mark, I think he's just having problems. Mr. Richard, did you want to say anything before we close the public hearing?
Well, I have comments, but they're basically duplicative of what was said at the last hearing. And I don't want to take up the board's time unnecessarily. It would take a few minutes, but as I say, basically what I've prepared is a summary of what was presented at the last hearing.
It's up to the board. I'm very comfortable now where I am. So does anyone need a summary?
No.
So I think we're good. Thank you very much, though.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second, sorry.
Okay, roll call. Eric,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
and I. Discussion before the motion.
Yeah, I guess I would just like to say, I kind of said where I stood last time. I think it would be a mistake to give Price Chopper the beer and wine license. I feel like if we're being honest, we would say that giving it to Big Y was a mistake. And I don't feel comfortable with the situation. It's not I'm not trying to limit alcohol in Great Barrington. I just don't feel that it belongs in a grocery store of that size, of that. So that's where I'm leaning.
Thank you, Eric. Anyone else?
Oh, go ahead, Lee. Sorry.
No, you can go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, I just, Eric wasn't on the board when we gave it to Big Y. I was, and I voted for it. And so I want to concur. I also think that was a mistake. On a sort of separate subject, but actually, I'll bring it up after the vote. So yeah, I think we made a mistake with that. The subject of helping Price Chopper compete effectively with Big Y came up. And, I said this when we did the last round of, not the last round, several years ago when we reopened beer and wine, that I don't think competition protecting or prohibiting is really in our purview. If it was, I'm not sure I would, while we could help Price Chopper's competition with Big Y, we would be hurting all the other stores. I'm not sure which way I'd go anyway, but I don't think competition is one of the considerations. And then finally, there's, it was reported that the last one we turned down might be taking action. And I understand that's not really part of our thinking, but this is our last one. And I would hate for someone to prevail in court and then still be unable to, in effect, collect. So I think we should hold off on any new liquor licenses till that's resolved. Thank you.
Lee?
Yeah, so I've been doing a research since our last meeting, and I've talked to a few people about limitations of alcohol in general in towns and some of the ramifications of selling alcohol in grocery stores. And one particular person I talked to heads a recovery center. And what this person said is talked about environmental cues. He was very careful not to say triggers, but he said that a lot of people in recovery are, they know that they have to deal with environmental cues and they do the best they can, and not necessarily limiting alcohol in towns or cities will really make a difference. But what this person did say is that when they are shopping, in their experience, that they were speaking from an individual and not as someone that's running a recovery center, but this particular person has a child, and they said that they are in recovery, and they find it personally hard when they do go in a supermarket, and they're what the example that they gave me was, getting oranges and maybe being faced with alcohol, getting oranges that are suitable for mixers, or going into chips to get some chips and seeing beer. So they said that, a compromise, and this is where I was getting to in my last statement, that if we were to approve the selling of beer and wine in Price Chopper, that we consider limiting the satellite displays and having it just in the aisles, or the aisle that we can make sure it doesn't spill out, and that people are trying to abstain from alcohol have a chance to stay away from those aisles, but we don't limit it from people that want the convenience of purchasing it when they purchase the food. So one of the angles that I'm kind of leaning towards is proceeding with approving this license, but requesting that it be limited to just the beer and wine aisle, and that we do not allow for satellite displays. Now, in terms of the competition factor, my question is, if we wanted to balance the Big Y's license with this, if perhaps in the renewal of Big Y that we might want to look into limiting the satellite displays over at Big Y. So it's just something that I've been thinking about. But and I did get another letter from someone along the same lines with the limiting of alcohol. And what they said that that it's critical to keep it in the aisle. And they said for people with alcohol issues, it's about self-control, and that they believe that recovery is a public health issue that should be supported. So again, this is someone that wasn't in favor of necessarily turning it down, but asking if we could be considerate of those people abstaining from alcohol. So it's something I would like to discuss with the board if they're open to that.
Yeah, I just want to have first of all, a little process. There's two people with their hands up. We've closed the public hearing. I gave people a chance to raise their hands, and one had a technical problem and the other hand just went up after we closed the public hearing. So we will not be taking comment. So to Ed's point, and I just want to make sure that we are fair to Price Chopper and anyone who may appeal. I would like to vote tonight, and I'm wondering, Ed, if you, and I don't know how you're going to vote, but if you would be willing to do a contingent on the expiration of any appeal, so that this is off our plate and Price Chopper realizes that the appeal period has to expire or the appeal has to be heard by the courts.
Sure.
So, and Lee, to your point, I have no problem with limiting it to the aisles that they are in, that it's designated, and to work with either town council, ABCC, or the staff when renewal comes up, that we limit others, not just Big Y, to the aisles that it's put in, so that everyone is in the same position. Anyone else with this? Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, I guess, I do hear a lot of concern about the competitive disadvantage, but I guess I'm just wondering about the competitive disadvantage for all the other stores in town, so yeah, that's just my thoughts.
Sort of in the interest of time,
yes,
just if Lee wants to keep this in mind when crafting a motion, I'm still voting no. So I don't know if you want to spend a lot of time coming up with conditions, I guess is my point, but that's up to you.
So even if we put even if we put something about the appeal, you're still going to vote no on this?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's clear that this, Lee, why don't you make a motion so that we can at least get through this?
Sure. I make a motion to grant a beer and wine package store license to Eugene Richard of Price Chopper, 300 Stockbridge Road, on the with the condition that the beer and wine is limited to the aisles and not in satellite displays.
Do I have a second?
Yeah, second for the purpose of a vote.
Okay. Let me just give my opinion on this. And there are a number of liquor store owners I'm friendly with, and this was a tough decision. For me, I'm going to vote in favor of this because it seems to me that it is in our position to deal with about competition as much as I would like to be, because they're very good people who own the stores, and I don't want to lose them as either friends or acquaintances, but that's part of our job. As far as the appeal, the Eagle didn't use my opinion. My opinion stands on the previous one that we turned down. I didn't know enough about it. There wasn't a presentation, and I didn't feel comfortable approving it. So I still stand by that. That's the reason I voted no. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? So roll call vote. Eric?
No.
Ed?
No.
Lee?
Aye.
And I, so it fails for lack of a third vote. Okay. Let's move ahead to new business. And this is where I was talking about moving things around. so that we could get the new business moved ahead. So this would be the Dubois Center donation, Randy Weinstein, who is going to, Mark, are you going to lead this?
Actually, Randy is going to speak on this. I just need to return him back to the participant pool so I can promote him as a panelist. I just opened his mic, so
Okay, great.
just bear with me here for a second. It's Randy, you're good to go on our end. You can open your mic and turn your camera on.
Just open your mic, Randy, please.
How's that?
Perfect.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mark and Steve. If you don't mind, I'd like to just digress for 1 minute. You know, for me, tonight's been a long time in the making. In October of '97, I opened up the Great Barrington Museum of Civil Rights Pioneers, which is the precursor to the Dubois Center near Big Y. And that February, when I opened up, we had our first Dubois birthday celebration. And a lot of people showed up. I don't remember how many, but the thing that has struck me then and does now is that a town official spoke at the occasion. And I still remember his words. It was something to the effect of, you know, whether you like him or not, Great Barrington and Dubois are inseparable. And 25 years later, I believe more than ever that Great Barrington and Dr. Dubois are inseparable. And that's the impetus behind my 2 proposals tonight. Thanks for putting up with that. 1, I would like to propose that the town of Great Barrington establish. Yes, am I good?
Yeah, you're good.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'd like to propose that the town of Great Barrington establish Great Barrington W.E.B. Du Bois Center as a department within the Great Barrington Mason Library. To this end, that the town manager appoint an advisory committee to provide recommendations on issues such as preservation of artifacts, programs, budget, security, etc. That the advisory committee consists of representatives from the Great Barrington Du Bois Legacy Committee, the Great Barrington Mason Library, the Library Board of Trustees, the Friends of the Great Barrington Libraries, and a representative from the Great Barrington Selectboard. As with the Great Barrington W.E.B. Du Bois Legacy Committee's stated mission, the proposed Great Barrington W.E.B. Du Bois Center would continue to preserve and promote Great Barrington native W.E.B. Du Bois's legacy as a scholar and activist for freedom, civil rights, progressive education, economic justice, and racial equality. The proposed Great Barrington W.E.B. Du Bois Center would contain Du Bois-related historical artifacts, as well as a comprehensive collection of reference works pertaining to African-American history and culture. In numerous ways, the Great Barrington W.E.B. Du Bois Center would enrich the community. 1, the establishment of the Great Barrington Du Bois Legacy Program Series, innovative town-sponsored programs in the library atrium. 2, curated exhibits of significant historical artifacts. 3, an accessible resource for area school students. And 4th, a community hub for information sharing, meetings, study, research, and reflection. My second proposal dovetails with the first, and it's that the town of Great Barrington accept a collection of Du Bois-related historical artifacts, including original letters, documents, and books owned by Dr. Du Bois, and an in-depth collection of reference works pertaining to African-American history and culture as donations from me, representing the W.E.B. Du Bois Center. It's my hope that the town of Great Barrington will honor native son W.E.B. Du Bois with a permanent municipal home in the town's library. And I think Gwendolyn might have something to add when it comes to this.
Thank you, Randy. Mark, do you want to add anything to this?
No, I don't have anything specific to add. I'm going to go ahead and promote Gwendolyn, but
Yep.
I'm looking forward to working with you, Randy, and all the folks you mentioned in your advisory committee list. And
Great.
I'm super excited about this project. Oh, I thought we lost you for a minute. I'm super excited
Fantastic.
and looking forward to this. So I'm going to go ahead and promote Gwendolyn. There we go.
Hey, Gwen.
You're muted, Gwen.
Oh, hi. How are you doing?
Good. How are you, Gwen? Do you have
Good.
anything you want to add, Gwen?
I do, just really briefly, serving as the vice chair and working alongside Randy for so long. I'm really here just in support to endorse the Dubois objects being and other African-American artifacts being in the Great Barrington Library. I feel like the library is a community hub. I envision it being a part of the larger Dubois efforts with the statue and the Clinton Church Project and, you know, the Dubois home site, just another space where families can gather and learn together. And I just really be part of public access. So I'm really endorsing that and just my enthusiasm for Randy. I know this is his life's work that he's donating to the library. And I think that that's also commendable to make all of the things that he spent his life collecting now accessible to the community at large. So I just want to thank you all for considering it. And I'm really excited about the next steps in the project. So thank you.
Thanks, Gwen. Board members, questions or comments?
Both a comment and then a question. You know, there are not really enough actors in town for us all to play only one part. I'm the uncompensated president of the Friends of the Library, although if I have anything to say tonight, it will be as a select board member, unless someone has a question. But you know, Randy, as the founder director of the Dubois Center and also the chair of or co-chair of the Dubois Committee, I don't know that you need to tonight, but at some point clarify who's talking, if it matters. I don't think it necessarily does tonight.
No, I understand that, Ed, and I absolutely agree with you as well. This is a preliminary for sure.
Right. And that sounds exciting.
Go ahead, Glenn.
Yeah, I think and just to Ed's point just now, and if I'm speaking as the vice chair of the Legacy Committee, we've had some unofficial discussions about this, and I think it would be really important that we sit down as the Library Committee and the Dubois Legacy Committee and some reps from the Select Board and talk about just what Ed described. You know, what our relationships are, how this really upholds the values of Dubois that we all voted on. So I hope all of that work is what we can plan out for the near future.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Garfield.
I would like to know or hope to ask, if are any of the people that are on your committee, the folks that you mentioned, are there any elderly or older Black people on this committee, or I think it might behoove us to have some older Black people on the committee. I'm not speaking of myself only, but there are older Black folks in this town that I think need to be in. Oh, you guys are grinning. But I think it's
well. I feel a little nervous in calling out people's age, but I think we have a good intergenerational representation. We have had Ray Gunn in the past. He's not there now. Stephanie Wright, I think, kind of bridges generations at this point. I hope she's not going to get me for that. I know.
Well, here's the thing, if I may.
I hope she's watching. And you know, but I agree. We are really trying to have the youngest of our residents involved, and also continue to have our elders. And it's really important, Garfield, that all the while that the Legacy Committee does our work, we recognize everybody that's contributed to uplifting Dubois now and historically. So that is really taken to heart for our committee. So thank you.
I do feel though.
And please, and anybody, can I take an advantage? There's 70 people watching. We have open seats on the Legacy Committee. So anyone that's interested in joining us, this is a great time. So, yeah.
If I may, as being an older Black man, I appreciate Randy. He spoke with me a long time ago and asked me to be involved. But I really think it's important that there are some even lay Black people on this committee. Great Barrington, let's not kid ourselves. There's not a lot of Black folks. When they said there was about 4% of Black people in this town, I've been here 43 years, and I find that hard to believe. And I think it's important to have that representation with W.E. Du Bois.
I do too. Here, here.
Me too. Yep.
Absolutely.
And I just, I want to extend my my gratitude to Randy and Gwendolyn in particular for really pushing forward this initiative and bringing it into the downtown Great Barrington. Randy, thank you so much for all the work that you've done. It's been quite a heavy lift, and Gwendolyn, thank you for extending all the hard work and support you've brought. I'm incredibly excited about this partnership, and I think having it in our library and all the educational opportunities and just having it downtown is just a wonderful gift to the community. So thank you so much for making this happen.
Thank you.
So Mark, just a process question. Do you anticipate tonight that would it be appropriate that we ask you to form a committee to work on this?
Yes, I think that would be best.
So do I have a motion?
I make a motion to form a WE.
Have the town manager form.
Oh, okay. I make a motion to have the town manager form the W.E.B. Du Bois Center Committee.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just keep in mind, with the transition at the library staff, to keep one eye on the library staff for their input.
Yeah, good point. Anyone else? Seeing no one, roll call vote. Garfield.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Ed.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
And aye, it's unanimous. Randy, Gwen, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank
all.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Next is the review of application process for municipalities to opt out of state reclamation and mosquito control board spraying. Yeah, that's enough.
I'm getting there.
Yeah, no problem.
It's a long list of attendees tonight. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, Rebecca Jersick, our health agent, has just been promoted.
Rebecca, just unmute yourself and there you are.
Hey, everybody. Okay, so I'm here to request that the select board first review the process for opting out of the state reclamation and mosquito board spraying program for the 2022 season. Consider the recommendation of the Board of Health as well as the Agricultural Commission. And last, to make a final recommendation on whether or not to submit an application to the Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs to opt out of spraying in our community. So while I just talk about some background information on this application process, I just want to screen share. I'm going to pull up a risk map that we have to review together as part of this application process of it's historic triple E in the state of Massachusetts. So hold on one second. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Let me just fix my screen. Okay, so you can see Berkshire County is historically categorized as having low risk and high risk, and this is just for triple E. This doesn't include other arboviruses, but triple E was mostly detected in the central to eastern part of the state. Okay, so in 2020 was considered a particularly severe outbreak year for triple E, which stands for Eastern Equine Encephalitis. So across Massachusetts in that year, there were 6 reported human infections. So in order to better protect the public, Governor Baker made the protocols for disease mitigation a little bit more stringent. So previously, boards of health or the select board would need to formally opt in order to be designated as a mosquito controlled district. And then mosquito control districts could then be the recipient of mosquito spraying if local risk made such measures necessary. But now, so in order to opt out of broad applications of insecticides and pesticides, communities need to develop an outreach program in order to educate the public on preventing mosquito infections, and then host a city council or select board meeting, as we're doing now, to receive community input prior to a vote. And then the State Department of Energy and Environmental Affairs ultimately has the authority to approve or deny applications to opt out. But I'm guessing they're using that criteria based on this map here. So depending on your vote tonight, if we do submit an application, I think that Great Barrington would be in a good standing to have that approved by EEA. And so if we are approved, this application is just valid for one season, so we'll have to renew these annually. All right, has everyone taken a good look at this map? Can I stop screen sharing at this point?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so the Board of Health made their recommendation to pursue the application at the last meeting, May 12th. And because we have a really wonderful agricultural commission who's on top of these issues, they also submitted their recommendation. They did not have to, it's not part of the application process, but again, they're just really on top of these things. And the recommendation from the AdCom was to opt out of the mosquito spraying program as well for this year. And as part of the application process, the health department will develop educational materials, which will include, but not be limited to, disease information about the various arboviruses on our website, notification through the Code Red system or media releases if and when the risk in our community is high, ways to prevent mosquito breeding on personal property, and then possibly community classes taught by a local ecologist on how to install biological deterrents, such as enhancing habitat for mosquito predators or planting species of plants that discourage mosquitoes. The general opinion of the Board of Health is that these educational materials and just general outreach, and then most importantly, the weekly surveillance of mosquito populations in our area is just superior to spraying. Aerial spraying and then roadway spraying in order to prevent human infections. So I don't want to suggest that insecticides don't work. They definitely do, but these broad applications don't necessarily target. So they target mature species and they don't necessarily reduce the spread of disease. So for this reason, that's why the Board of Health recommended to promote the things that folks can do on their personal property and how to protect themselves. And then just a side note here, this application to opt out is not prohibitive of what you do on your personal property. This is just for state spraying within the limits of our town. So somebody wanted to put insecticides on their property, that's their prerogative. So,
Do I have
any questions?
Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Can I
if
just
could-
add-
Yes,
can
go
I-
ahead.
One thing, so the vote has to be specific on what type of spraying you want to opt out of. So if you just want to opt out of aerial spraying, that has to be specified. And then if you want to opt out of all spraying, so that could be on the backs of trucks on the roadways or ground spraying or aerial spraying, just have that motion reflect a generic opting out of spraying.
Okay.
There was the recommendation from the two boards specific about what to opt out of?
Was the recommendation specific?
From Board of Health and the Ag Commission.
Um,
Just about One or both?
They both, all of the above.
Thanks.
Mhm.
So do I have a motion?
I just need clarity on how to frame this motion. If you're more clear than I am, Steve, I can.
I think
move.
what Rebecca is saying that we make a motion to opt out of all spraying in Great Barrington. Is that what you need, Rebecca?
The motion is technically to recommend that we apply to opt out
Of all spraying in Great
of all
Barrington?
spraying. Yep.
So Lee, you can say so moved.
Thank you. So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So we have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Roll call, Garfield,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
and I. It's unanimous. Rebecca, thank you very much.
Thanks. I'm going to hang on for the next agenda item too.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Next is review and approval of the intermunicipality agreement between Great Barrington and host agent, the town of Lee. The IMA is required to initiate the appropriation of funds from the public health excellent grants to the towns that were awarded. Rebecca, go right ahead.
Okay, so last year, Tri-Town Health Department applied on behalf of Great Barrington and several other South County towns for the Public Health Excellence Grant. And we were awarded, so that's, I think, a total of $200,000 annually for 11 years. So quite a big sum of money. So we feel very grateful for that. And so as part of that grant, we've established a Southern Berkshire Public Health Collaborative that's been in existence since the fall. So maybe some of you have seen the weekly updates that the public health nurses put out, really helpful for data about COVID for our whole community, not just Great Barrington. But so now we put the cart before the horse. So now we're backtracking, and we need to have this intermunicipal agreement signed by each of the member towns in order to officially benefit from those public health excellent funds. So Jim's here too to supplement with any information if you have any questions, but that's what we're asking.
Jim, do you have anything to add?
Not really. Good evening, members of the board. So Rebecca's correct, but we're getting $300,000 a year for the next 12 plus years. And part of the Special Commission of Local and Public Health standards that were put out a couple of years by the legislature, we're finally at a time where the state's finally investing in local public health. And so several of us got together a couple of years ago in South County to have a more of a sub-regional shared system. And as the town manager, I think, was quoted in the Eagle about trying to, it's very difficult to find municipal positions. So all of us kind of joining forces to create a comprehensive public health nursing program, which I think Amy Hart and Jill Sweet is on the call. It's really to finalize the intermunicipal agreement. All other municipalities have signed on to it. And actually KP Law was one of the firms that put together the intermunicipal agreement, who also represents several other towns. And it's kind of passed muster. And we're just really excited to be working in South County to really build stronger regional systems. And the way the state is talking, there's more money coming down the pike to really build comprehensive public health systems. And we're just here to hopefully get your endorsement for the IMA, and we can continue to work in South County to close the gap of inequities and increase public health outcomes.
Can you, Jim, it's my fault. Can you just state your name and position?
Oh, sure.
For the record?
Yeah, I'm James Willis. I am the executive director of the Tri-Town Health District, and I'm sort of the fiscal host through the town of Lee to make sure that the grant is being served appropriately through the South County towns.
Thank you. Garfield, go ahead.
Yes, I have a question. Rebecca stated 200,000 for 11 years. You stated 300,000 for 12.
Yeah, it's 300,000 a year, and it's up to 12 years. There's multiple grant extensions, and so yes, it is 300,000 a year for the next several years, and it equals about $4.1 million. but the way the state is talking, that this is going to happen in perpetuity, hopefully for the foreseeable future.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing no one, Rebecca, you want to help us with the motion on this one? Is it just to approve the IMA agreement?
Yes.
Go ahead, Lee.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the IMA agreement.
Second.
Discussion. Seeing none, Garfield,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
and I, it's unanimous.
Thanks
Thank you
for your
very much.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next one is to set fee for the A Farmers Series pouring license. Well, grammatically, that's awful, but Mark, is that yours?
Sure, I can take this one. So in your packet for this evening is an executive summary that was prepared by Amy, and we have, or we're anticipating, our very first application for one of these licenses, and we have not yet set a fee for it. So staff is recommending that you consider setting that fee at $450, which is the same as our annual restaurant beer and wine license.
There is someone with their hand up. Did you hear Stephen? Go ahead if you want to speak.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
We can. Name and address, please.
95 Lewis Avenue.
Yep.
To DA Stephen. When are we talking about the STR proposal?
STR proposal?
Yeah.
As I've said a couple times, that's last in the agenda, so that'll be next.
Okay, thank you.
Getting back to the Farmer Series pouring license, do I have a motion?
Make a motion that the board vote to approve an annual Farmers Series pouring license fee of $450, which is the same as an annual restaurant beer and wine license.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Garfield?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
And I. It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me just get one thing out here. Okay, next will be the short-term rental discussion. So I have just a little bit of ground rules. The select board will vote on a draft short-term rental bylaw tonight. Following the vote, we'll listen to public comments concerning our draft bylaw. Following public comments, we will vote whether to modify the draft bylaw or accept the draft bylaw and make it part of the annual town meeting warrant for the town meeting on Monday, June 6th. The rules for public comment are as follows. Each speaker has 3 minutes. You must state your name and address when you're recognized to speak. I ask you not to repeat what others have said. Speakers must either be taxpayers or residents of Great Barrington and Housatonic. All comments are addressed to the chair. We'll not be discussing individual select board members. Your remarks must be to the draft short-term rental bylaw, not the process or any opinions on individual select board members' possible conflicts. There is citizen speak at the end of the meeting for topics other than short-term rental bylaw. So if someone has something else they want to talk about, we will surely entertain that at the end of the meeting, which is a little ways away. And before I forget, at the height of tonight's meeting, we had 7 attendees and 63 participants. I'm sorry, 63 attendees and 7 panelists. Don't raise your hand yet because we're not ready for public comment. When we are, I will tell you. So on the agenda, the first thing we're going to talk about is B, which is a select board discussion vote on short-term rentals. That gives us a draft bylaw so that people can comment on it. So we don't have that yet. So Chris, do you want to go over the highlights of the?
Steve, I'm just gonna jump in quick and say that I'm staying recused for this discussion for the night.
Thank you, Eric.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Chris Rembold speaking, Assistant Town Manager, Planning Director. So it's been a little while since the Select Board last discussed a draft of the short-term rental bylaw. I think the last substantive discussion was your March 7th meeting, at which time I left that meeting with a charge to work with the chair and vice chair to develop a draft based on what the board members, the 4 participating board members had laid down in their comments. And the draft that is in your packet, beginning with the executive summary on page 53 of your packet, and then the draft is on page 54, represents the outcome of the discussion that the town manager and vice chair and chair and I had. The executive summary serves to summarize the key provisions of the draft that's there for your discussion tonight. Firstly, a few highlights. First of all, short-term rentals in this draft can be either in a primary unit or in a secondary unit. If the owner is on premises, it can be unlimited number of nights. If the owner is not on premises, the maximum number of nights is 150. Only one short-term rental is allowed per owner. No corporations, LLCs are okay, but corporations are not. But the LLC details must be fully disclosed. And there's a registration process proposed to do that. There are a few things, there's a word missing. Other items that are unchanged from previous drafts that you had seen in January, February. Registration is required. There are certain requirements during operation, noise and those sorts of things. And inspections are also included there. So that's a quick summary. And as in March, I think the process now would be for the board to discuss and see if this could represent a final draft that you could take to town meeting and or allow for public comment. So Steve, go ahead.
Yep. Thank you, Chris.
Can I ask a point of order? Yeah. In the agenda and the agenda packet from several other meetings, this very similar draft to what Chris just went over included a grandfather clause under number 4 of the revisions, which isn't here now. So would you explain why it isn't and what that process was to remove it?
So as I explained to you on Sunday, Ed, the select board, as Chris has pointed out, had asked Lee and I, Chris and Mark to, mainly Lee and I, to come with a draft to bring back to the full select board. That never happened in the last 10 weeks because of a series of misadventures and adventures with the Ethics Commission. Ultimately, Lee was the last one, other than Eric, who's been recused the whole time, who could not participate. The Ethics Commission said if the grandfather clause wasn't in there, she would be allowed to. Since this had not been brought to a public meeting, I took that out because it had not been presented to the select board, and I'm presenting this document for us to review tonight.
So the grandfather clause was that the 4 of you, when you met, agreed to be in there, was removed.
It was only 2 of us. Mark and Chris were just giving advice.
Right. So that was removed so that Lee could participate?
That was removed at the recommendation of the Ethics Commission for Lee to participate.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So do we have comments about the revised short-term rental bylaw?
Well, I'd like to start with the grandfathering. Right, but the grandfathering was put in there, and I assume you guys agreed to put it in there because there are people who have businesses who have invested or who have, possibly more than one who have put money into it, one of them spoke to us that this, this harms. There's process. In the interest of drafting a good bylaw, we ought to draft a good bylaw in order to serve the public, not in order to serve individual select board members. Right? We haven't made any changes to this so that Eric can participate. But aside from that, I think it's important, the grandfathering, and I'd like to put it back in if we could.
You would have to make a motion.
I would. I suspect it won't go anywhere. But so I'd like to move that we add the words that used to be there, unless they already had multiples as of January 1st, 2022, for number 4.
Do I have a second? As I did earlier, I'll second it for the sake of discussion. Go right ahead. Anyone have any discussion?
Those of you who don't support it, is there a reason? Seeing none.
I didn't say I didn't support it.
No, I know. I'm saying if I haven't heard anyone speak against including the grandfathering as far as it affects taxpayers.
So I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Garfield.
No.
Who's next? Ed?
Aye.
Lee?
No.
And I, so it fails by a 2-2 vote. Continue the discussion. Having no more discussion, do I have a motion to approve the draft bylaw?
No, there are all sorts of, sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Those are issues with something been before us before. I'd like to remove the 150-day limit. If the owner isn't on premises, it doesn't serve a purpose. The purpose is in the beginning of the bylaw. One of them is not to stop short-term rentals. So if we, the number 5, no corporations are out that does the same purpose of getting rid of commercial interests. So there's no reason to limit to 150 days.
Is that a
Make the
motion?
statement again, please?
What's that?
Can you say that again, please?
Yes, there's no reason to limit short-term rentals to 150 days. There's no purpose that it serves. Or I guess somebody tell me what purpose it does serve. Otherwise, it hurts taxpayers. It hurts people who are trying to make extra money, which is one of the purposes.
I think it preserves the neighborhood, and that's one of the reasons that I think that should stay in there. I think the 90 was too restrictive. I think the 150 allows people to still do business, but preserves the neighborhood. So that was my reasoning, Ed.
Is preserve the neighborhood one of the? Should we add that as a purpose then?
Yeah, we can, Ed, if you would like.
I don't see a need to, because I don't see they hurt the neighborhood. I don't see 150 days of rentals hurting the neighborhood more than 180 or 200 or 300.
Okay.
Still.
So I have a motion. Do I have a second? We will continue. That dies for lack of a second. What else, Ed?
The grandfathering. No, there's no reason to change that. Under the regulations, they're not numbered, I don't think. The second one, I'd like to change it to property, not unit. In other words, if somebody owns a piece of property with 2 or 3 units, that there's no reason they couldn't rent all 3 out.
So just say that an owner may register to operate only one property?
One, right, as opposed to one dwelling unit.
Okay. Do I have a second? I'll second for the sake of discussion. Anyone want to tell me why that's a good or bad idea?
Well, good, it fits the purpose of allowing people to make, to earn money from their properties. It doesn't increase the number of properties that are hosting. You could have 1 unit with 10 rooms, which is allowed, but you can have 3 units with a total of 4 rooms or 3 rooms, and that's not allowed, and it doesn't necessarily make sense. If we're trying to limit the number of people in a neighborhood, which is an unspoken purpose of this.
Anyone else? So I have a motion and a second. Garfield?
No.
Ed?
Aye.
Lee?
No.
And I, it fails for a lack of a third vote. Ed, go ahead.
Oh, that one was out. Oh, number 5, which is about the low income.
5.
Right, the way that's written is if you have purchased your home and there's a deed restriction on it to keep it normal, I mean, to keep it low income in the future, for example, the homes that are being built up in Housatonic, the one on Grove Street, if you're in that home and you've got that deed restriction, but you need money, you're not allowed to engage in short-term rental. I think that's what this says, unless I misunderstood it. So we're actually prohibiting low-income people from doing this.
Not, that's a misstatement. We're prohibiting people who have a deed restriction. From doing-
Right, but they are by definition low income, or they wouldn't be in there.
Right, but that's not all low income people.
But that's not the intent. I get that.
Yeah. So I have a motion. Do I have a second? So Ed, continue.
Okay, number 6, I just didn't understand, which was at, which is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. An owner shall not register or offer a rental unit subject to long-term lease as a short-term rental, nor shall a tenant offer his or her rental unit as a short-term rental.
The point of that, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, if you own the property, you can short-term rental it. But if you're going to lease as a long-term rental and then make it a short-term rental, in other words, the tenant does that, that is not allowed.
This says the owner can.
No, I don't think that's what it means.
Owners should not register or offer a rental unit subject to long. So if I currently have a long-term rental, I can't turn it to a short-term rental.
If there's a lease on it. If there's no lease on it, you can.
With an existing, with an unexpired lease, is that what we need to say then?
We could change that. Chris, what do you think about adding that? Will that make it clear? Not the opinion of whether it's right or wrong, but will that make it clear?
Or I guess it was inhabited by somebody with a lease. I'm not.
I think it's the clear reading of that is a plain reading of that is that there's a lease in effect. Now, I think it's pretty clear as written.
Okay.
If somebody has a long-term lease, you can't offer it a short-term rental, nor can the tenant. I think it's clear as written.
Okay.
Anyone else? Anything else, Ed?
That's it for specifics. So I'll wait for a motion. And then I have some general things.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to accept the draft bylaw as presented.
Second.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Ed.
I was going to second it for discussion.
Okay, discussion.
So we don't know what this will cost the town, right? We don't know what it'll cost in lost taxes, which we could dedicate to affordable housing or any other kind of housing. We don't know what it'll cost us in lost tourism business to our businesses. We don't know what it'll cost us in inspection and enforcement. And we don't know about lost revenue, how much lost revenue there will be to residents and taxpayers. We also have no idea what the benefits will be. Housing, creating housing, workforce, affordable or otherwise, is not a purpose of this. If you think it should be, we should put that in. So we have no idea what the benefits of this are. We have no idea how many, if any, units of year-round housing this will create. We know there are 56 units that are not owned, or there were 56 units that were not owner occupied. I'm sorry, year-round resident occupied. We know the ones that are year-round resident occupied are not going to turn into year-round rentals. And some number of those 56, so we have no idea what number, are owned by people who want to use it part of the year, so they won't be. So we have no idea the benefits of this. So my question is, how can we say the benefits outweigh the costs if we don't know either? And nobody has answered that yet. I asked that question the first night we brought this up. The other thing I want to bring up, unless somebody wants to address that first, I don't want to.
No, just keep going, please.
Granicus, the company that we're talking about hiring to police this, which I have been criticized for calling cyber spying. On the other hand, Airbnb doesn't release the address. I have stayed places with Airbnb. I hope that doesn't make this a conflict. When I traveled, I've stayed in an Airbnb. You don't get the address for a couple of days. It's not in the listing. I don't know specifically where I'm staying. You know, I will know how many miles from the city center is about as specific as it gets. They have a map, which we have all learned isn't specific, because you can look at the map and not know there's one next to you. So somehow they are coming up with a specific address and making it public. I assume Airbnb has security reasons for not wanting to release to the public when an Airbnb is vacant and when it's rented. But somehow we're hiring a company that can get around that can tell us whether the unit is empty or full, how often it's used, and apparently whether it's being used by somebody who's paying money or by the owner's grandmother coming to visit. It just seems like I mean, if my next door neighbor were looking at my house and knew how often somebody was in it, how often I had company, whether or not it was somebody who was paying me, I would call that spying, and that's my neighbor. And then finally, just how we enforce this. What's the presumption of guilt? Granicus comes to us and says, this person's renting too much. Who's got the burden of proof, and what's the appeal rights, and what is that going to cost us? And what is it going to cost the people who are trying to do short-term rentals legally? So those are the reasons I'm voting no on this. I don't think we've ever come up with an answer to any of that. I would love to have them if anybody wants to offer it, although you're well aware you don't need to.
More discussion? We have a motion and we have a second. And this is only to approve the draft bylaw before public participation, public speak. It's not to put it on the warrant yet until we hear public speak. So roll call vote. Garfield?
Aye.
Ed?
No.
Lee?
Aye.
And aye. It passes 3-1. So remember the ground rules and the time to speak. And so as people raise their hands, I'll recognize you. Okay. Frederica Siegel.
Yes, thank you very much. Frederica Siegel, 27 Round Hill Road. I have 3 questions about the specific language, and I would like to hear the answer to each one of them. Under the 3rd paragraph under regulations, it says up to 2 bedrooms in a dwelling unit or an entire secondary unit on the same parcel may be registered and rented as a short-term rental. So my question is, up to 2 bedrooms in the dwelling unit and up to 2 bedrooms in the secondary unit, or up to 2 bedrooms in the dwelling unit and the entire secondary unit regardless of size? Can you clarify that?
Chris, do you want to try to clarify? Because I'll allow clarifying questions.
I think this is Chris Rembold speaking. An owner may register to operate only one dwelling unit. So I think that's the.
No, I'm asking about the number of.
Could you let him finish, please?
So that's the controlling sentence, I believe. So it's one or the other. 2 bedrooms in the dwelling unit or the other secondary unit, not both.
Regardless of the number of bedrooms?
That's how this reads, yes.
Okay, just to be sure that that's the intent.
Yes.
And then further in that paragraph, in cases where the owner is not residing on the premises, sometimes in the past you've used residing as meaning present, and sometimes you've used the word residing mean as being in permanent residence. And I wonder what the intent for that was.
Residing is, this is Chris speaking, residing is there at the time of the rental.
Present, in other words.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, because I think you might want to consider changing it to present. And the last thing was at the end of the regulations where it says an owner shall not register or offer a rental unit subject to a long-term lease as a short-term rental. I was confused by that, and I wondered if you wanted to clarify that it was subject to an active or a current long-term lease. The second part of it is very clear.
I suppose we could put that in there. Does that clarify it at all?
This is Chris. I think it's clear. Either there's an effective lease or there isn't.
Well, so perhaps the word effective would be good. Thank you.
Subject to a lease is, the lease is current and
Well,
effective.
but subject to a lease could be at any point in time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for considering.
Thank you. Next, Lawrence Stephen. And if you name and address, please.
Hi, Lauren Stephen, 95 Lewis Avenue. Thank you for the time. I just real quick was concerned for the town and that the town gets what it wants out of this. I need to first echo that I share a lot of Ed Abraham's concerns, that I feel like a lot of this proposals here, I don't see what they accomplish. So, I mean, I'd even put it out there of like, what problem is this legislation trying to fix? I've heard people trying to connect short-term rentals to low-income housing. I've lived in apartments in many cities all over. I've lived in low-income housing, student housing. I'm now grateful to be a homeowner, but I don't actually see in a proposal anything here that would help low-income housing, and this comes from having studied economics. So I'm not quite sure what this proposal is meant to fix because I don't see who's being helped by this. I agree with Ed that there seems to be no reason to prohibit people who are on a lease from being able to put their property up for a short-term rental. That would seem to penalize people who aren't rich enough to afford a house from benefiting from that. What if they need to travel for school or they have a layover on their lease? Or I don't see why the town cares about that. I don't see any reason to limit to 150 days if you've also limited commercial activity or owning multiple properties. If you've disbarred people from having multiple properties that they're putting out there to rent, what's the additional interest in the town in limiting it to 150 days? Again, it just seems arbitrary. I'm not sure what any of this actually accomplishes. So those are my main concerns, is that I don't see how this helps low-income housing. And I do know that there are a lot of things that would help low-income housing, and all those require money. And we have a town, as everybody knows, is highly dependent on the tourist economy. And we short-term rental our house. We rent exclusively to families who wouldn't come if they had to stay in a hotel. They come to stay as a family in a house, and they spend money at all the businesses in town. They go into the restaurants, even more so than we do because we live here on a budget. And I don't think that this town somehow coming up with strange legislation or vilifying short-term rentals actually does anything to fill the town coffers to give us the money to fix the low-income housing problem. So, I mean, that's my overall concern, is that this is just not targeted very well. And I think I'm echoing a lot of Ed's concerns about language that I'm finding very unclear.
Thank you very much. Dan Ruderman.
Hello, Dan Ruderman, 4 Nob Hill Road in Great Barrington. I just want to congratulate the board for all the work they've done so far. In a way, it feels to me it's like you heard the whistle of a train in the distance, and you decided that it might make sense to put down another track so you can switch it off and don't get run over by it. And I think taking action now is kind of like we see the light in the tunnel, and we'd much rather get that train switched off than see the underside of the train. I don't know if people are aware of it, but one of the reasons for the bylaw was because there's a concern that corporations and others will turn houses and neighborhoods into businesses, into inns that look like houses, and deprive our community of the integrity of the community, of people attending the schools and living here and not just visiting. And Airbnb has sent out form letters to all the Airbnb owners asking them to come and speak at this meeting and others and stop it, which means that as a small town, we have a giant corporation, the largest hotel corporation in the world, communicating with our residents about how this town should be. And that makes a big difference to me. Like, that is not what I want. I want to see the people talking about it. And I want to congratulate the people of the town for all the conversations, including the difficult ones and the challenging ones and the insulting ones. And congratulate the chairman of the board for keeping this pressing, even when there's been all sorts of misadventures, I think was the word you used, Steve.
There was.
Yeah, and for the select board members who have continued to fight for what they believe in. using all means necessary, and the ones that are, bright enough to recuse themselves. And just, I hope that the board will go forward and put this up for the town to vote on, and the town will have a voice on it in a way that will help us all keep our community and its integrity intact. Thank you.
Thank you very much. David Long.
Hi, Dave Long, 304 North Plain Road, Housatonic. I gotta say, in 40 years of paying attention to town government, this is the most misguided idea of a bylaw I have ever seen. You know, you guys started talking about affordable housing and then took that out of the equation. At that point, none of this makes any sense at all. In fact, and there's no understanding that STRs actually represent very traditional ways that we've prevented homelessness, created rooming houses that have helped people through times of crisis, and the young find temporary housing till they can get themselves settled. And the other thing about being affordable is, there's two sides to every ledger. One side is what you pay in your mortgage, and the other side is how you make money. So taking another tool away from people to be able to make their own houses affordable is making less affordable housing, not more affordable housing. It's really true that the speculative market is overheated right now, and something needs to be done. But I think we need to be clear about what it is we're trying to do. And if the idea is to deal with the shortage of housing, then we should be looking at all vacation rentals versus all full-time rentals, and then, or all full-time housing, and then taxing the vacation rentals, all of it, not just the stuff that's rented for a weekend, but the month-to-month stuff, which probably, if we actually had data, we'd find outnumbers the short-term rentals by multiples. I mean, we are losing full-time living space to vacation rentals, but more of that is probably going to month, which is not addressed by this bylaw in any way, shape, or form. And the people who are doing short-term rentals, in large part, are some of the people that we hear from. They're the itinerant workers, they're the retired folks, they're the families in crisis who, through death or divorce, have found themselves in a crisis they're trying to navigate, and they need every advantage that they can get. SDRs can be bad and they can be good. And this bill does not discriminate between the good and the bad. In fact, as Ed points out, it's really hard to understand what it actually does, besides saying we don't like short-term rentals. There's an idea in your discussions that it's all about expensive Airbnb rentals, but that's not all of the short-term rentals. In fact, all kinds of situations, temporary situations, are necessary, particularly in times of shortage, when there is no elasticity here. You can't just go find another place. So
Dave,
just,
your 3 minutes is up, so just wrap up if you could.
okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
It just, I just seems so wildly ill-conceived that, I'm really sorry. As a proponent of affordable housing, it really hurts me to look at this bylaw as a serious proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. Christian Grippo, excuse me if I pronounce your name wrong.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Kristen Grippo, I'm at 30 Pine Street. I've been renting here for over a decade. I just found out that my rent is going to be doubled next month. It's not a short-term rental, but I'm just here to speak on behalf of the working people who are trying to still stay living in Great Barrington. I understand that this is in no way a solution to the larger housing crisis that's happening in this community and beyond. However, I really want to thank Dan Ruderman for his comments, because I think what it's doing is speaking to what we're standing for and against at that point. It's a message that I understand what Ed said, that we don't necessarily know what this bylaw is going to do, but if it makes anything available to even one family, that could be my family, right? And so as somebody who's like been immediately affected, my husband grew up in Stockbridge, I'm a teacher in the community, I might have to move away. And so it feels to me like if we can come together to keep these predatory regulations at bay, then I think that's a start. When I moved here 10 years ago, I came to a community where people were able to help each other out, who could say, oh, hey, I have this place available for you. And I don't see that happening. I understand that homeowners need to make back on their mortgage, but it doesn't seem like those kind-hearted open negotiations are happening. It feels predatory and greedy. And my experience is that I know I'm one of many, many families who are probably not going to be able to stay here in Great Barrington. And I'm sorry for that. And I'm here in support of this measure, in addition to whatever comes beyond the pike in terms of making some more affordable places for the working people of this community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just want to make clear, people are allowed to speak once. So if you have your hand up again and you've already spoken, we won't recognize you a second time. Next is Dan Seitz.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, thank you for this opportunity. First, I just want to say
Your
that—
name and address, please.
Oh, sorry, sure. Daniel Seitz, 31 Pleasant Street in Great Barrington.
Thank you.
And like many people, of course, I'm concerned that the BlackRocks and the Vanguards of the world are buying up housing, both housing that could be used by people as single family, rental investment or whatever. As I'm also concerned that Bill Gates now owns half of the farmland in America. But I would caution the board, first of all, that a bylaw like this could be construed as a substantial taking of value. So there may be legal issues that could be actually debilitating for the town. So you might want to think that one through very carefully. Just from some of the questions earlier about the language, you can see that trying to craft a bylaw like this is inherently ambiguous. And I think the ambiguity in part comes from trying to exercise great control over how people are using their property. And I think that may be a mistake. We do some Airbnb rental. I don't think we would be affected by this bylaw, but I want to say that the one reason why we've chosen to do this is because of draconian controls on property owners elsewhere. In Boston, for instance, there was a rental moratorium. And if something like that were to happen here, you could have ordinary people who are making ends meet be greatly hurt. So the fact that there are threats to people just being able to rent their property and continue an income stream in that way is one of the reasons why people actually may choose Airbnb. Also, just for flexibility, we have family and friends who come through. So I just want to say this isn't always a matter of greed, but can be a matter of flexibility. Airbnbs contribute to the well-being of our community, as is said. And I also want to say that Great Barrington is not a community that's hostile to low-income housing. Look at how many projects have been built and are being built. So this is trying to fix a problem that the community is actually very actively engaged elsewhere. So I think it's misguided to try to do this through control of individuals' property rather than through a more straightforward continuation of the building of affordable houses. I agree with Ed Abrams' point earlier that there's no knowledge of the real costs and benefits of this. And in fact, it could potentially prove more costly than beneficial to the town. And I think absent that type of information, this really is a form of virtue signaling. If you had very concrete information of the outcome, some real attempt to answer the types of questions that Ed was asking, I think that would be a different story. But otherwise, it seems like it's just trying to take a step in a direction, but without any real knowledge of how it might pan out.
Your
Finally,
time is up, so if you would just wrap up, please.
sure. Just a final thought is that when there have been attempts to control properties, say through rent control in New York City and so forth, there are many unintended consequences, people not moving out of apartments because it's a good deal, people being front people for renting and then subletting. So you may also find that there are many abuses that you will create by trying to overly control people's use of property. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Larissa Yapel? Somehow I got a fraud, David. I'm sorry. There you go. Thank you, whoever did that.
Hi, everyone. Larissa Yapel, 15 Castle Hill Avenue. I'll be brief. I want to second everything Ed said tonight about this. Most concerning, the first thing that he talked about, but I also strongly object to capping the nights people can rent, whether they're here or not. I object to capping it at all. And I don't want to see this go to town meeting at all, the way it's written. And I just think I'd rather see the citizen petition go to town meeting for discussion. So thank you very much for the effort that happened on this, but I don't support it at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Larissa. Efrat David?
Hi, Efrat David, Nob Hill Road, Great Barrington. I wanted to say, first of all, I appreciate the problem of finding long-term rental and that is affordable for the workforce, even though it's not part of the stated bylaws. I understand that's very much part of the discussion. And I appreciate all the conversation that were made about that. However, I think this is an idea that is not cooked enough, and I would not repeat what many other people said about that, but I would appreciate if the select board would consider taking more time to do research and researching about that. I have a few questions to ask. One of them is, how would those bylaws, if presented to the town meeting, would the town vote on each of the clauses of the bylaw or all of it together?
It would be voted on all together. It can be amended on the town meeting floor.
So people can offer amendments?
Yes.
I want to ask clarification. What's the purpose of limiting short-term rental within the residence, the main residence of homeowner, to only 2 rooms? What purpose does that serve?
I think it protects the residential neighborhood is what it's my opinion. It may not be anyone else's, but that's fine.
Is there another reason?
Not that I'm aware of.
And I wanted to ask also, it seems like there was an important to not treat second homers and primary owners differently. But as a result of the discussion, eventually it seems to me like there's a discrimination from people who live here for years, have one home here, and may want to have an investment property within the same town, where the people who live outside of town can rent their property somewhere else and rent the property here, but people who live here cannot rent their 2 properties that they own here, like their primary property as well as an investment property. So it seemed like it discriminates against primary residents versus people who are second homeowners. So I'm trying to understand the purpose of doing that.
I don't think it discriminates, so You just go on with your points. Your time is running short.
Um,
Please.
My last point is that every proposal that I've heard, like, treating the weeds in the lake or doing a road around the lake near my neighborhood, there was always an agent that was hired by the town to do research as to the cost, the impact, look at different options, put it to the public for a vote. It was much more, and it took time, much more well-researched approach. And I would urge the select board to consider doing that so that the idea presented are well-researched. We know the impact of those and what it will solve and not solve, and to whatever degree it will solve any problem.
Thank you, Efra. Mark Rosenthal.
Hi, it's actually Eileen Rosenthal.
Okay, name your address, please.
Yeah, 39 Castle Hill Avenue.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me speak. I just want to say, I have something that I want to say, but I also want to say that in terms of research, there's actually been much research done on this subject in many, many towns in our country. It's not hard to find that research, and I think that the people who've drafted this have used that research to make the decisions they've made. So what I wanted to say was, I don't know if STRs, they may not impact lower cost or affordable housing, but it does impact the availability of long-term rentals. And because of the shortage, it drives up the price of those long-term rentals. And there are other things driving up the price, but all of the prices, the greed that's happened here is very sad. My husband and I, who have been residents for 34 years, full-time residents for 35 years, when our son was young, we had to rent for a number of years in Berkshire County, and before we could afford to buy. And I feel like that opportunity isn't there. As Kirsten said before, you have to have property that people can rent. Not everyone can ever own a home. We have to be able to have, especially young families, have a place to go to, have a place to live so that they can turn into long-term residents. If no one can rent here except as a vacation, then we will only get people who are on vacation. And I want good neighbors, and luckily I have very good neighbors. And I want to continue to have that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eileen. Next is Bill Cook. Go ahead, Bill.
Actually, it's not Bill Cook, it's Deb Phillips.
Hi, Deb.
Drive. Thank you. And I think this bylaw allows a lot of flexibility for people to get extra income from their homes if they need help keeping up with the mortgage or the taxes or whatever it is. I think it builds a lot of flexibility in. And I'm going to agree with Dan Ruderman, maybe not as eloquently, that this is really about preserving our neighborhoods, preserving our residential neighborhoods. And it's not that we have lots and lots of short-term rentals in our neighborhoods right at this moment, but the trend is going that way and we need to stop it. And researching for another year and weighing numbers is just going to further decrease the number of homes where people live, where people are invested in their community. They're going to become investment properties solely for short-term rental. And that is going to have a distinct impact on the nature of our town. I live in a residential neighborhood for a reason. I don't live in a commercial neighborhood. And I would like to continue to live in a residential neighborhood. And I think that this is going to limit the number of buildings that become hospitality businesses with people coming and going in residential neighborhoods. And I think it's really important that we do it now. Thank you.
Thanks, Deb. Next is Jennifer, so I need your first and last name and your address. Oops, hold on. Sorry. There we go. Jennifer, it looks like you're unmuted, so just state your name and address, please. Just unmute yourself. Looks like you're having a little audio problem. Just need to unmute yourself. Okay, I'm going to skip over, but we'll come back to you. We'll come back to you again. Mark, if you just put her back in line, and James Manning, please. Just unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi, James Manning, 304 Main Street, Great Barrington. You know, what the woman just said a few minutes ago, I mean, all these neighborhoods are residential neighborhoods. I don't own a house on the hill, but I'd be pretty mad if businesses were allowed to operate hospitality, whatever you want to call it, a B&B, an Airbnb, a lodge, an inn, whatever you want to call it, they're all the same thing. If you want to know about what the future is going to bring, I just encourage you to type in Marriott Homes into the Google, and you will be able to select a home, and the menu looks almost exactly like Airbnb. Now, I know we're trying to keep it out of here, and I think this bylaw, short of anything else, is absolutely critical to slow down and preferably stop short-term rentals. Again, if I lived on the hill and I spent $1 million for a house, and all of a sudden the guy next door, it's a Holiday Inn for him, you know, I don't think I'd be pretty happy. I mean, if you look at the zoning map, it doesn't say residential with an overlay of commercial in use. There is, and then another thing that I'd just like to bring up was people talk about affordable housing, workforce housing, etc. The fact of the matter is, and I hate using that expression, is if short-term rentals are allowed to proliferate, there will be no long-term rentals, as opposed to some. There won't be any, because it just doesn't make sense. And I caution people to look at the proposed short-term bylaw from the petition of some people, because they're asking that short-term rentals may be rented by right by a homeowner in all zones with following exceptions. The point is they're asking for a blanket overlay of this entire town of short-term rentals. And yes, there are exclusions and so forth. But this one, anything that discourages short-term rentals is a benefit to this community. No, it's not gonna, you know, I can't handle when people say it's gonna create or not create affordable housing. It is gonna limit the amount of long-term leasing available for full-time residents. Of course, I probably had 3 minutes worth of stuff to say, and I can't remember the rest.
Okay, you have about 10
Anyway,
seconds left. You were pretty close.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, I fully support this. Anything to slow it down. And, you know, I'm just surprised people. I mean, I'm just surprised people, last point. I'm just surprised people haven't, like, the Mahabi's, the different applications tonight for one-day liquor licenses. I'm just like curious as how many people came into Great Barrington and said, Do I need anything in particular to do short-term leasing? Any rights or zoning or whatever? And I doubt that's happened. And I'm just surprised it hasn't happened since you get very granular on things. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Kristen Grippo, you've already spoken unless there's someone else there with you. We're only allowing you to speak once. Just unmute yourself, and if there's someone else, I'll be glad to allow them to speak. Okay, let's move on to Gabrielle. Oh, I keep doing that. Sorry, Mark. Okay, we'll let Sarah Dixon go first since I hit her twice. It's not going to slow anything down. Sarah, just unmute yourself, state your name and address. You've been recognized. All you have to do is unmute yourself. Or just put her back in line and we'll see if we can get that fixed.
So unfortunately, I can't put them back.
No, they go in the end of the line, right?
Yeah, they'll just have to raise their hand again.
Okay, that's fine. Gabrielle.
All right, here we go. Thank you.
Yeah,
You can hear me now?
we can. Just state your name and address, please.
Yes. Gabrielle Senza, 4 Nob Hill Road. Okay, I'll make it quick. Oh my gosh, we're here. So the purpose here is to try to get the bylaw onto the annual town meeting. It could be imperfect, nothing's perfect, but we do need to slow this train down. As we've talked about many times, there are a lot of people who have lost their homes. I'm heartbroken to hear Kristen's rent is being doubled next month. This has really serious impacts long-term. And it's really important to slow this train down and have regulations. We can work out the perfection stuff later, but we need to slow this down. I've mentioned on earlier calls that the severe impacts show up in cities all around the world. And guess what? The Berkshires are a really hot place. The market is so huge and so important that Airbnb is bothering to make sure that this market is protected because they benefit as well as the homeowners and companies, corporations, etc., any investors that are coming and buying up what's available. Talking with real estate agents and investors in the last couple of months, I have been told that some houses don't even make it to market and they go to bid above market rate, well above market rate, leaving out any local or any person who might want to try to purchase it on their own and prevent this from happening in the neighborhoods because they want to live in the neighborhoods. So this is really important. I'm hearing business owners telling me that they are really concerned about how they're going to keep staff, how they'll be able to stay open, how they'll be able to serve the people coming to this area, the Berkshires, people, whether they're staying in hotels, whether they're staying in Airbnbs, they can't, their staff on, they're closing early some days. They are not even opening some days. They are closed for 2 weeks at a time sometimes because they can't keep their staff here because there's no place to live. And who can afford to drive down at an hourly rate from Pittsfield every single day reliably? So these are big concerns. We won't even have the nice places, the coffee places or restaurants if there's no place for people to live. Same with the fire department and the police department and the emergency teams. These people are critical to the safety of every single person that lives here, not just the visitors, but every single one of us. So these are really critical, important things to consider over the profits of anyone who's concerned about losing, like feeling like, 150 days is not enough for an investment property, I think priorities need to be re-examined, and what do we really value here? This is really important. So
Just wrap up, Gabrielle, please.
Yep. 150. Okay, I think I said the things I want to say.
Thank you very much.
Stop the proliferation. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Erica Milky.
Hi guys, Erica Milky, 360 Park Street in Housatonic. I wanted to say a few things. I'm thankful that tonight's discussion amongst board members has been much more civil than in prior months. Those were really painful and kind of cringy, to use my son's terms, discussions sometimes. Similar to other things I have to vote on in state and federal elections, I would like to see something that is much more than what is being proposed now, but you know, even small improvements are a step in the right direction. So I feel like, just for example, banning or whatever, prohibiting corporations from purchasing homes that they can then use as short-term rentals, I feel like that alone is a huge step in the right direction. I would love to see this be even much more laid out, more planned, but I understand that there's been a lot of bounce back. So even anything is a step in the right direction, in my opinion. And there's been so many people that have been bringing up how that there are more effective ways to promote affordable housing. And I'm just so looking forward to all of those people proposing those things and adding those things to their citizens petitions. I can't wait for all the ways that this community sounds excited to support affordable housing. And yes, that's a little tongue in cheek, because I have a feeling they're not really that into affordable housing, but I hope I'm wrong, and that those people are really going to promote all those ways. Our community can only keep changing for the better. I've got a lot of friends that are being evicted and or have had their rent doubled or even tripled. There's this beach place I go to on the coast of Massachusetts occasionally, and they have you know, this one boardwalk, and they don't have anyone who can afford to live there to work. So they like bus in folks that seem to be from I don't know, an Eastern European country. They bus them in for these 12 and 15-hour shifts because they have no workforce that lives close by. And I'm starting to wonder, I work at a lot of nonprofits and have worked for small businesses in the past. How are we supposed to find workers? How do we find employees, like Gabrielle was saying, for all of this amazing, you know, restaurants and coffee shops and hotels? How can we afford that? I'm just picturing us becoming a full-fledged resort town with busing in people from an hour, 2 hours away to work ridiculous shifts as like the only way to even fill these positions. Yeah, I guess that's it. I keep having that picture of like old school buses busing in all of our workers just to maintain the resort community 24/7 all year. I would love something that promotes affordable housing in a more direct and clear way, but it's a step in the right direction, which I hope will be followed by many more steps. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Jennifer Connell.
Hi, Jennifer Connell, 36 Quarry Street, Great Barrington. You can hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, good. First, I want to tell you how much I value the work that this board has done over the last many, many months. This was not an instantaneous resolution that you came to, and I really appreciate your hard work. And one thing I want to mention is that when we keep talking about low-income housing, this clearly is not meant, you know, to solve that problem. Low-income housing, I don't know why we're not talking about providing people with actually a living wage. Look at it from that angle as opposed to reducing things so people can scrounge by. There's been a lot of talk about the money and cost benefits, which I find are a little preposterous, because if you're permitting now 150 days of rental, you know, even if you're renting a house for $150, that's over $22,000 a year. This hardly seems to me to be a hardship. And I think we need to look at that. I moved here about 25 years ago. I liked living in a small town where I did have a sense of neighborhood, where I knew the people that I lived next door to, where we all helped out each other when there was need. And I've seen communities that have been eroded by too much of the Airbnb model. And, you know, they're like ghost towns during certain times of the year. I would hate to see that to happen here in Great Barrington. I think as a democratic community in the state of Massachusetts, we need people who are actually interested in leading this town in a good direction, participating in what goes on here. And if everyone is just passing through, that vitality will be lost. And I think that would be a shame. So thank you. That's really all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Francois.
Yes, hi. My name is Francois Coito. I'm at 671 South Havermont Road. So I'll start with the point about affordable housing. I think as everyone seems to be in favor of doing something about affordable housing, which I think is the right thing to do, why not focus on this instead of having this divisive proposal that a lot of people are disagreeing with? So, you know, I think instead of wasting all this time, money probably, and effort speaking about restricting short-term rental, we should focus on the right thing for the community. You know, if we want to preserve the community and the people that want to work in the community, we should do so. So that would be my first point. Second point, I find the process a little bit shocking that I just learned tonight that by listening to the opening statement from Mr. Bannon, that there was a clause about grandfathering that was removed so that we could allow a member to participate and vote. That's, I don't know, the whole process seems to be a sham, but
I'd ask you not to talk about the process, but I appreciate your comments. They're about me, so
Okay.
we'll accept them.
So I'll go back on regulations. I would say if we want to do something about short-term rentals, instead of restricting, put in place regulations about noise, sanitation, fire alarms, permits, you know, taxes, so that we can use the taxes to benefit affordable housing, so that you can allocate the revenues to affordable housing. Anyway, earlier in the call, there was a discussion, and I find this a little bit hypocritical. There was a discussion on spraying insecticides, which I think is a great, I mean, the getting out of that spraying, I think, is a great idea. But the health person that was talking about it said that, you know, individual properties and owners could do whatever they want. I certainly don't want to put insecticides on my property, but if you decide that people can do whatever they want on their property, you should be able to do the same for housing. If somebody owns a house, they should be able to supplement revenues or do some repairs or supplement their retirement if they want to do so. You know, this whole proposal belongs to Russia. And I can speak something I know. My in-laws are from Russia, so I know exactly what happens when you own a house over there. So anyway, a couple of points that I wanted to make. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay. Lawrence Stephen.
Hi.
Have you spoken already?
No, I'm saying one thing for my husband who had to step out, small little.
No, he would have to speak. We're not allowing anyone to speak twice. If he comes back, I'll be glad to recognize him.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Nan Weil.
Yeah, hi, thank you, Steve. So, gosh, so many things have been discussed this evening.
Name and address, Nan.
Nan Weil, 909 Main.
Thank you.
Obviously. So first of all, I think this whole focus on affordable housing is derailing the conversation, which is really about neighborhoods and short-term rental availability and proliferation of that is changing the neighborhood. There have been a lot of houses that have been repurposed for short-term rental, and I think it's great that people are making money off of their properties, and this bylaw will not prevent that, but it will prevent people from just buying houses and properties and for speculation. Anyway, I think that the whole affordable housing issue should just be off the table in terms of this bylaw. My understanding is that this is really much more about preserving the intimacy of our neighborhoods, and that in fact people rather know who's living next door than have a round robin of cars and strange faces that resemble a hotel across the street. I think the 150 days is very generous. I know a gent who has an Airbnb across from him newly, and he says 3 months in the winter, they rent to one party or one group of people. 3 months in the summer when it's Tanglewood and Jacob's Pillow as opposed to skiing, they have a constancy of neighborhood by having the same people there. He said the other weekends or the other times of the year, it's like living across from a hotel. To me, that's very frightening in a residential neighborhood. And the focus that we have on numbers and dollars and cents is, yes, of course, very interesting and all very relevant to some extent. But if our select people or our board people are deaf to the sentiments of the people that elected them, they're going to be elected out of office. They'll be voted out of office. These people that are wanting a restriction on affordable housing are wanting to preserve the tenure and fabric and and I don't want to say complexion, texture of their neighborhoods, which are intimate and familiar. And having a lot of Airbnbs in a neighborhood, of course, disrupts that. Airbnbs is a big money-making business. Chip Connolly, who invented the whole strategy of Airbnb, is a multimillionaire living down in Baja, and now has a university catering to very rich seniors who want to take esoteric courses in a variety of things and be in the sun.
And just wrap it up. Your time is up.
Yeah. Anyway, let's listen. Let's please listen to these sentiments and feelings of the voters and residents in these neighborhoods, rather than asking for dollars and cents and number comparisons. It's really immaterial as far as I'm concerned. Let's take care of our families as opposed to our bank accounts. That's it.
Thank you, Nan. Sarah Dixon.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Sarah Dixon, 214 Pine Street, Housatonic. I'm a homeowner, and occasionally I've rented my home primarily to Tanglewood teachers and musicians. So I always felt like I was kind of giving back to the community. I grew up here, graduated from Monument, and when my son was born, I was able to move back in 2016, and I purchased my grandparents' house. And the rental income has just really helped me to move back here, to pay for, the necessary renovations of buying my grandparents' house. And also dealing with the increasing taxes that I've faced since 2016. And I just want to say for the record that I really oppose any restrictions on short-term rentals. The research I've done, it just seems like having any kind of restriction on what you can do to your property, it just seems like it's going to reduce my property value. And, you know, looking at the future, I just don't believe that our taxes are going to go down. So it just kind of seems like a lose-lose situation because, you know, my value is going to go down, my taxes are going to continue to rise. And, you know, it's just, you know, because of this that I'm definitely going to be voting not to regulate short-term rentals. And what else did I want to say? I'd like to just again bring up that there is a way for this town to make money, an avenue that's already in place with the state. It's called the 3% impact fee. Places like Cape Cod already have this in place.
Sarah, I'll give you a little extra time, but that's going to be, we're going to put that on the warrant tonight for the town meeting.
Okay, great.
So that's good
And
news.
I just want to get all my things out here, sorry.
It's okay, I interrupted you.
You know, I'd really prefer, I've done my research again. I mean, I don't want to really regulate it at all, the short-term rentals, but I definitely would rather see the citizens petition in place rather than the one that you guys have proposed. And I do have to just comment that the fact that the grandfathering clause was removed so Lee could participate definitely seems very, I'm a nice person, curious, and I thought that was just something I wanted to just note. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Okay, there are 3 people left who are going to speak. The next is Julie Anichar.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much. I live at 15 Sumner Street in the Castle Hill neighborhood, and I just wanted to say that I echo the opinions, and I'm in favor of the opinions expressed in support of the bylaw. I think it's very fair. Our neighborhood doesn't have too many Airbnbs right now, but there is a trend in one area where I do have neighbors that are sandwiched between 2 houses that have come on the market and immediately off the market for the sole purpose of becoming short-term rentals. And the neighbors there are quite unhappy about it. But I'm not going to repeat what everyone else has said because I thought they made really great points about the impact of short-term rentals to a community. There's been tremendous amount of research, and there's a reason that this kind of legislation has passed in other communities in the Berkshires and around the world. I mean, it does damage. Somebody had said that if we regulate short-term rentals, that this would impact business owners in our town on Main Street. And right now, many of the businesses are luxury business chains. And I have no problem with luxury business chains, but those properties are already out of reach for people who just want to start small businesses of their own. I mean, that's impossible now. And even affording a house, you know, just for a middle income family is impossible. And this legislation is not going to do anything about that. And it's not meant to. But my question, without repeating too much of what everyone else has said, is about the LLC portion of the bylaw. I see that there's no restriction on LLCs, and I'm wondering what exactly would prevent one individual from registering 5, 10, 100 LLCs and purchasing a house for a short-term rental under each individual LLC.
They'll have to be disclosing the owner of the LLC.
And so does that mean, Steve, that it's just one owner and only one LLC allowable for one owner and one property?
That's the intent.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julie. So we have more people with their hands up, and I will allow them to speak, but we're still up to 3. So Claudia Lasley, go right ahead.
Yes, hi, my name is Claudia Lasley and I'm at 29 Benton Avenue. I'm going to be very brief. My concern is about Granicus. I'm really surprised actually that no one else has spoken up. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but I'm very concerned about it. I just think that it's not very well known or understood by the general Great Barrington population. I've read it in detail and I'm so concerned about this. It's sort of like Homeland style security spyware for our beautiful little sweet town. It seems expensive and very invasive and sorry, my dogs are barking, of course. But yeah, I would like to have a lively discussion where people are able to speak and question about Granicus, because I think it's just absolutely wrong for our town. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Barbara Barak.
Yes, am I unmuted?
Yes, name and address,
Okay.
please.
6 Cornwall Drive. We've had some issues with a neighboring LLC, I believe, on Manor Lane. That was an event venue with a lot of noise problems. I'm sure you're all familiar with that, similar to the place on Long Pond Road. And so I'm a little confused because I believe that's an LLC and that would still be allowed.
The event part of it would not be allowed. They would still be allowed to be a short-term rental.
I see. I just want to make a point. I'm all for
I
this,
should
by the way.
clarify, without an entertainment license, of course, they could go a different way. I'm not sure they get that, but
Even if they're not even if they're living in another state.
yes.
Okay.
They could still be a short-term rental.
I see. Okay. I'm totally in favor of this. I think 150 days is very generous. I want to make a point that no one else has made. I move here and I love the residential feeling of Cornwall Drive. We have put in place in our bylaws a limit on the amount of renting we can do here in this 8-house community. And I really appreciate it. And as someone who wants to age in place, it's going to be much harder to do it if we have a transient population. I so much appreciate that I can call on my neighbors who know me and we have bonds, and I know that we'll be there for each other. And it's not an easy place to age in place because we don't have all the resources of Manhattan where I used to live. So our neighborhood connections matter a lot. And I have friends who are out in the North Fork and have seen their communities become just transient populations where you can't even go into town on weekends, in some of these towns. And it's terrifying what can happen. So I do think you're putting a brake on something that is slowly getting way out of control, and I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Next is Michael Peretti. Michael, just unmute yourself. There you go.
Are we unmuted?
Yes, you are. Just state your name and address, please.
Julie Peretti, 125 Seacon Cross Road. We've lived here our whole lives, and we've been property owners for rental for 30 years. And we have done the whole gambit of permanent renters. We have one permanent renter and we have one Airbnb, very small, it can only fit a couple. But it has been a game changer for us, and we have had lovely guests. They come and go, and our permanent renter loves the guests. She talks to the guests probably more than we do. And they have come and gone to multiple things in town. They came and participated in Berkshire Busk. They go to Tanglewood. They go, so we talk about all of our things that go on in Berkshires. Well, if nobody has anywhere to stay, they can't come and do those things. And my Airbnb is very small and it's very, affordable. And we get young people who come and are able to go to Tanglewood and able to go to the concerts at Mahawee and be able to do that. And I just feel like hotels are not cheap in this area. They're charging $400 or $500 a night. And people have to look for different ways to stay somewhere. And this provides that ability. And I don't know if anybody brought it up tonight, but I pay taxes through Airbnb to the state that I think Great Barrington gets, correct?
Correct.
Right. Do we have an idea of how much money that is that was brought in?
Yeah, we've talked about it. I don't have it in front of me right now, but yes.
Because I just was wondering, where does that money go? A regular renter doesn't pay taxes to the town. We pay taxes to the town. And like somebody said, your taxes go up and up and up. And it's, how do you maintain an affordable rent when everything else is going up? We just got our insurance bill. Well, that went up by $200. So who absorbs that? I can't keep absorbing it, in order to maintain my property. And, and I know that there were properties around here that weren't being maintained and they were renting to people and they were substandard and nobody was paying attention to that. So, and I don't want to be that type of tenant or a apartment owner. I want to be able to have somebody have a nice apartment. And in order to do that, I have to charge to cover that. And, and I've been trying to keep my other rental really low in price. And it just gets harder and harder. And I'm telling you, Airbnb has saved us. And then and we are able to keep our property. And so I just really hope, you reconsider it. And I do agree with people. This whole bylaw thing is very confusing. And I think if it went to the town vote, I don't know if it would be fair one way or the other. I don't think people are really understanding it. I mean, you guys were even, asking each other questions about it. So I really hope you reconsider how it goes to the town meeting. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Last is Lauren Stephen. I think it's her husband, if he's back.
Yeah, he's back.
Thank you.
Hey, everyone, can you hear me?
Yeah, just name and address, please, for the record.
Yeah, the Stephen 95 Lewis Avenue in Great Barrington.
Thank you.
Yeah, I totally appreciate this discussion. I know it's late for everyone. And I echo in many ways what the previous caller was saying. The only other thing I would add is that the town is going through a lot of changes. It's very much of a tech-enabled economy, and what we have to be careful of is not the Tonys, who are local and trying to build a business and feed their families, but what we have to be careful of is about large corporations coming in here and robo-buying properties and renting them out.
I'm just going to read this title for everybody else because we were talking about it. New York Times article, a 60 billion housing grab by Wall Street, talking about Blackstone and REITs and robo-buying by Zillow, and all these things are affecting small towns, big corporations coming in and buying up single family homes. It was October 22nd, 2021, New York Times.
Thank you. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So first, I want to thank everyone who spoke tonight. It was respectful. It was interesting. And we knew there'd be opinions on both sides, and there were. So next, and by the way, Ms. Barak said about aging in place. I think I did that tonight. Just during this meeting. Next, we have the review and approve the warrant articles 29 through 32. So there's two parts to this, and a couple of select board members have asked me about this. 32 is the one we've been talking about for over an hour. 29 through 31 is what someone mentioned tonight, the impact fees. So the first part is to approve warrant articles 29 through 32, whether together or separately, to put on the warrant. The other is, I've had two board members ask me if the warrant order is set, and no, it's not. We can move the order around if that's so desired. But let's first get through setting the articles 29 through 32.
Steve, it may be, excuse me, academic, but weren't we going to, after listening to people speaking, decide if we were going to listen to them or make?
Well, that's what we're doing. You're right.
Oh, I thought we were voting to place it on the warrant as opposed to place this particular one.
Say that again. I'm sorry. I'm a little behind you.
I thought, people have recommended changes. We will.
Yes,
Okay.
we can do that. So we can do that, whether, yeah, it probably would be easier in your way than it is mine. You're correct. So a little discussion on what we heard or changes we'd like to make.
I'm not going to recommend any specific changes because I know where that'll go and I don't want to waste our time. I do want to address just a couple of the things that, one of the things that bothers me is I don't think people are giving answers to, we got a lot of questions from the people who have trouble with this, and some of them are the same as mine and still no answers. But, one speaker said, all these are residential neighborhoods. And I just want to say, that's not true. One of the first things this board did, actually, it was done with a lawyer before it even came to us, was to decide this is a general bylaw, not a zoning bylaw. A zoning bylaw would have let us address different neighborhoods differently, but the decision was made, I assume, because it's a lower vote threshold and easier to pass this, to treat all neighborhoods the same. So I agree with that speaker. This is every neighborhood, and I don't think it should be. And I just want to point out to Nan, and who I couldn't agree with more, this is not about affordable housing. It's absolutely, it's not about workforce housing. The speakers who talked about rent being doubled, right? This will not stop that. Housing values are going up. So if somebody buys a house, their mortgage expenses are up. That's why rents are going up. The solution is has nothing to do with short-term rental. There are plenty of things we can do, which we have not been talking about. So I agree with her that it's not about affordable housing, but when she says to listen to the voters, I just want to point out it was about equal voters on both sides. So, it's not our job to just count the votes, that's town meeting's job. But we are listening to the voters, and the voters are saying many things on both sides. Thank you.
Yeah, they are. Your point is well taken. One of the things tonight, and it's hard at a meeting like this because not everyone participates. So this by far is not a scientific poll, but even tonight it was, about 50-50. I didn't count. I was trying to run the meeting, but it was more reason, which I've been saying all along, to bring this to the voters at the town meeting and let them ultimately make the decision. That's my point. You may not agree with that, but there was no surefire winner tonight. And, not that this was very scientific, but it was, some people had good points on both sides. And I continue to think that that's our best thing to do as a board, is to bring this to the town meeting and let people make the decision there. Anyone else?
Yes, I'd like to echo what you were saying as well, Steve. And I think some of the people that I heard, first of all, this is a problem not just in Great Barrington, it's all over. So people just think it's here, are acting like it's just here. This is a problem all over. So it's not just germane to Great Barrington. So it isn't an issue just of Great Barrington. It needs to be looked at and dealt with. Again, this is not a affordable housing affordable housing or workforce housing bylaw. It's meant for all the people of Great Barrington. I have not heard the people who seem to be opposed to it. And this is my opinion, and it may get me in trouble, but I've not heard them sound to me very much like they are interested in the whole community, but interested in their own pocketbook. And that I find disturbing. And this, I think, is more of a, let's try to get everyone included, not exclusive to the people who are the ones that have the Airbnbs and the ones that want to do the short-term rental and make this money. And a woman made a point of how having 150 days at 22,000 was fine. When I made the point of making 31,000, for that time, people stuck daggers at me saying, you can't tell me how much money I can make, etc. I think this is something that needs to be heard by the people and let the people decide. And what I've not heard a lot of is people that maybe are just living in this town, who exist in this town and been here for a long time, saying, hey, I don't like this. There doesn't seem to be any, what I'm trying to say, I guess what I'm hearing more is more people that have money invested in short terms as opposed to people who are residing in this town and are living in this town. They don't seem to have I don't hear anything negative from them.
I'm sure I'm not the only member of this board who has been in business, but $31,000 coming in doesn't mean $31,000. There are expenses, there are gardeners, there are house cleaning, there are fees to Airbnb. So that's just not a real number. And second, the fact that somebody owns an Airbnb, several people have spoken to us about it, saying they do this so that they can afford their homes and pay their taxes.
And I firmly believe that if this bylaw passes, that they will still be able to do that. People can argue with me, but I still believe that. Just want to say one thing to defend the board, and this is not about affordable housing, but if you want to say that we should do more affordable housing, and Ed, you maybe alluded to this, I'm not saying there's not more we could do, but we've been doing very well with affordable housing in Great Barrington. We've done a lot as a board. We've approved things. We've the ARPA money, $850,000 for affordable and workforce housing. So you can criticize us a lot. Maybe we haven't done enough, but we've done pretty well. So we can always do more. I'm not saying we can't.
One of the things, and then Lee, I'll let you go, but the fact of the matter, it may not be $31,000 in the bottom line, but it's $31,000 net, or excuse me, profit that's coming in that you get to do what you want. And some people that don't have it, don't have that opportunity, won't have that chance to do anything.
We could discuss that, Garfield. I was in business.
Opportunity to
Sorry.
do other things. I didn't hear what you said.
We can discuss that. I was in business, and if I took in $31,000, if I had a dollar left after I was done, it was a good day. So it's sometimes tough. Lee?
I just wanted to bring this back to kind of the bird's eye view of how this all started. And, neighborhoods need neighbors. And, this is not a ban on short-term rentals. It's not a way to create affordable housing. It was never intended that way. This was really seen as a way to protect our workforce and our full-time residents, and to address some concerns about safety and stability, and a concern about the diminishing quality of life in Great Barrington. And what some of the concerns that I heard was, our homes and apartments were turning into hotels, and that there were people being displaced due to short-term rental. So I think this is a very, very generous and flexible proposal. 150 days, 5 months is a lot of time for someone to not live in their home, to go elsewhere and come back and still feel that they were able to enjoy their retirement or enjoy the investment that they made. I just want to clarify that in addition to this not being a ban on short-term rentals, with this proposal, you'll still be able to rent rooms in your home or an accessory dwelling unit in your property all year round. So this proposal will not stop you from doing that. So, again, if you have a couple of rooms or you have an ADU, you can live there and short-term rental, and this will not impact you. The other point I want to make is that the regulations in this proposal do not impact rentals for 31 days or longer. So seasonal rentals will not be impacted by this proposal. So families moving, travel nurses, teachers, students, seasonal workers, this will not be impacted. So a lot of people are fearful that if they want to go away for a month at a time, 2 months, 3 times, that they'll not be able to do so. And I just want to clarify that the short-term rental proposal does not stop you from renting seasonally. This is only for small increments. And this is a very, very flexible proposal that protects our neighborhoods, that keeps our quality of life as it is. Neighbors depend on neighbors. And when you think about someone next to you opening up a hotel, essentially, and you not knowing the people that are coming in on the weekends, and you have kids on your street, and you're trying to age in place, and you no longer know the people that are living on the street, that's something to address. And without having any regulations in place, we're opening ourselves up to predatory investors. We have a bullseye on our back, and there will be people coming in here to solely buy up properties, as we have seen, to run as a commercial enterprise, and they have no investment in the community. They are raising prices for people that don't have a chance to bid on the prices that people with the means can bid on. And it is affecting the diversity and the sustainability of this community. So this is just providing guardrails. This is providing a way for us to regulate it so that this community can still thrive and can still be sustainable, and that local businesses have a workforce. Again, we have to think about the bigger picture. And I think this is an incredibly generous proposal that people can still have 5 months of time that they are not needing to live in their properties. So this is a wonderful balance. It's not banning short-term rentals. It hasn't ever been designed to create affordable housing. With every unit of affordable housing, that's costing upwards of $400,000 to almost $500,000 a unit in terms of the cost of building an affordable housing unit. So if we can even get a few units of housing from this proposal, we're doing pretty well. And people have to remember that there are rental units that have been taken off the long-term rental market solely for commercial uses, such as short-term rentals. So we're not trying to vilify people. We understand that people want to monetize their properties, and that they have made an investment in their homes. And we want to recognize that. And we want to thank you for contributing to this community, whether you're a full-time resident or a second homeowner. But we have to support our workforce. We have to support this diversity of this community, and recognize that neighbors need neighborhoods, and neighborhoods need neighbors. And it's all cyclical, and we all support each other. So, I'm very thankful that we're trying to, we're moving away from the vitriol, and that this proposal can go to the voters. And that was the most important really point that I was hoping, is to have a discussion about housing in general, have the broader discussion about housing, and let's work together. This is one piece of a larger puzzle. This is only providing guardrails and regulations in place so we don't fall to the predatory instincts of corporations and people that hide in LLCs and that want to buy multiple properties and have no investment in this community. So I do hope the voters will support this proposal and understand that there's a lot of time and research that has gone into this from September on. And there's a lot of research that has gone on in many other municipalities that have struggled with this issue. This is nothing new. So I really am hopeful that this will make it to town meeting, and that we'll have a lively discussion. And more importantly, that we think about the community and the health of this community, and the sustainability and the diversity, and those that are struggling, that would love to contribute to this community, either with their families, going to the schools, or volunteering for some of the beautiful, wonderful nonprofits, or just really having a place that they can age in place and feel comfortable that they know the neighbors beside them. So thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Yeah, there's a lot in there. There was an awful lot in there. I just have one statement, one question. The statement is, you said you would be very lucky to get a few units of housing out of this, and I couldn't agree more. We would have to be very lucky, and it will just be a few. But the real question is, you keep saying workforce housing, and you say, first of all, you say it was never about affordable housing, which is absolutely not true. That's how it came out of the committee, and that's how it came to the joint meeting of the Select Board and the Planning Board. And it was at that meeting that all three of those groups said, this is not about affordable housing. How much is the rent on workforce housing? Because you keep throwing the words around, this will create workforce housing. How much is the rent? What makes it workforce housing as opposed to affordable or luxury? Is there a number?
I'm not going to be baited into this, Ed, right now.
So let's move on and decide whether we want to approve warrant articles 29 through 32.
Right, just I'm sorry, 1 second, Steve.
Yep.
Baited? I'm asking a question. I'm asking a numeric question. I'm not baiting you. I'm not.
But the point is, this isn't about workforce housing. I agree with
I
you.
agree with you also. And if we could all say that and stop talking about workforce housing, that's why I'm asking the question. But I don't know what workforce housing is, because Lee will at one point say this is not about it, and at the next, and I have the meeting and I have the minutes and I have the times where if you start by saying it's not about that and you say it is, I just am wondering, what is workforce housing?
Okay.
Let's
Okay.
move on this. We can discuss this at another time. It's getting towards 9 o'clock. Let's decide what we're going to do. We still have citizen speak time. I'm sure people are going to want to speak. And we still have to set the order of this. So this isn't about workforce housing. Ed's correct. And no one's incorrect in this. So let's just decide.
Thank you. Yeah, unless anybody has any, unless I see two heads nodding, if anyone's interested in changing this, I think we can skip that.
So do I have a motion to review, which we've done, to approve warrant articles 29 through 32 of the annual town meeting warrant?
Can I ask for a clarifying question? Is this when we say this, is this the order when we say?
No, what I said was this is two parts.
Okay.
They're 29 through 32 at 8:45. At 8:47, we could change the numbers.
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Okay, so do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Garfield.
This is to accept 29 to 32, correct?
Yes.
Aye.
Ed.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
And aye, it's unanimous. Now we're going to deal with the order that we would like this in.
Can I guess let me make a motion that we keep the order the staff gave us. It's in front of us.
Do I have a second? Do I have another motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we move the adoption of the bylaw governing short-term rentals, which is currently at number 32, after the community preservation projects.
Which number is that?
That's number 18.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Can I ask, or I guess make an amendment to that we also move the citizens petition to just after it so that we can discuss them both at once, since.
So before we go there, my bigger problem is I would really like to see the zoning amendments go before this. I think they're pretty straightforward. I think the planning board has worked hard on them, and I would also, just my request would be that we move them a little farther down, but that's just my request.
I'll go with that.
I'd like to speak to that.
Yep.
I feel that this is an issue that obviously a lot of people feel passionate for, and out of the interests of residents, I think if we can bring this up as close to after the financial articles, that would be beneficial to everyone. I would also like to keep the citizens petition at the end, as it traditionally is. So again, move the short-term rentals after the community preservation projects. So it comes after the financial articles, and keep the citizens petition as it's at the end, as it has historically been.
I'd agree with, sorry, you want to wait for a second?
I think we got a second.
Okay.
And let me just say something of process. This sounds really important to us, and it is, but realize the town meeting can change the order that any time that they want to. So just so everyone in the audience understands that.
So
go ahead.
Yeah, I would agree with Steve. I've watched the planning board do a lot of work on zoning. Also, there may be a fair number of people who are particularly interested in the senior tax deferral and would like to hang around for that also. And I have no idea why we wouldn't put the two of these back to back so they could be discussed together. It is one issue, this and the citizens petition.
I could jump in real quick. Lee, number 19 is also CPA related.
Oh, okay, thank you. So after, I would amend that to after the number 19, after all the CPA articles have been discussed. Could I speak to the
Go ahead.
suggestion that we split the two articles? The citizens petition, I think having the two of them will make it very difficult to differentiate between the two, and it'll really muddle the article that the select board has been working on. And if one of the articles go through, then it won't matter whether the citizens petition is at the end, as it historically always has been. So I would like to separate the two, and I would like to bring the short-term rentals forward in the warrant for that reason.
We actually don't know what happens if they both pass, and you might want them both together so that the same people who vote on one are there to vote on the other, so that we don't get both passing, because it's a very different audience. But we'll leave it to the vote.
Well, I would say if one passes, the other one will not go anywhere.
Not if half the people have left after voting. That's my point. That's why you might want to do them together.
Well, I disagree with you, Ed. I think that it will just make voters very, very confused. It's been a very confusing process. Can I please finish?
Go ahead.
So what I'm saying is that historically citizens petitions have always been at the end, and I think it'll be incredibly hard to follow if we have a citizens petition following directly a select board recommendation.
I'm not disagreeing with you on the that it's traditionally been at the end. And what I'm saying is, if, say, our proposal passes and then a lot of people go home because they're done, and then at the end of the meeting, the people who are left support the other one, we have two petitions that pass, whereas if they're next to each other, we're much more likely to get the same result. But we don't have to debate this, we can vote.
Well, I stand by my motion.
So we have a motion and a second, a roll call vote, and the motion is to move the short-term rental bylaw to what would be after number 19. So Garfield.
Aye.
Who's next? Ed.
Aye, but let me, can Eric participate in this, since we're talking about the warrant, not about short-term rentals anymore?
I have no idea. I will let Eric make that decision, because this isn't about short-term rental, it's about the warrant. And we don't have a lawyer, so Eric, if you didn't go to a movie and you're still here, if you feel comfortable participating, it's your choice. I'm not the police here.
Sounds good. I'm ready to
Okay, so the motion is to move the short-term rental bylaw that we just worked on tonight to what would be number 20, well, at least after number 19. So it would be a roll call vote. Garfield?
Aye.
Eric?
No.
Ed?
No.
Lee?
Aye.
And no, because I really want it after the planning board.
So let me make a motion to place the I've lost the number, the one we just adopted.
That's number 32.
32 and 33 immediately following the zoning amendments.
So that would be,
I don't know.
now I'm looking to see here, that would be after number 25, correct, Chris?
25 is not technically zoning.
Okay, so it would be after number 24. Okay, any discussion?
I would be okay with that as long as we keep the citizens petition at the end, as historically has been.
Yeah, that wasn't, that, I understand that, that wasn't the motion. The motion was.
We just had deliberation, so I was just.
Yeah, no, I understand. The motion was to move 32 and 33 to after 24.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I guess the way I'm looking at it is I like the way the staff has it lined up, and I just feel like we should keep it the way it is personally.
Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second, so let's go ahead. And I have to restate this because I forgot what it was at this point. We want to move number 32 and 33. I say that's the motion, not that I'm for or against it, to after number 24. Correct, Ed?
Yeah.
Okay. Garfield?
Yes.
Eric?
No.
Ed?
Yeah.
Lee?
No.
and no. Any other motions?
Eric,
Yes,
do you want to
I'd
make?
like,
Sorry.
I'd like to make a motion, please.
Yes,
I'd like to make a motion to move the adopt bylaw governing short-term rentals to after number 24, which is the last zoning article.
so do I have a second? I'm sorry.
I'll second. I thought that's what did we just vote on?
Okay, so let me explain this. What we just voted on was moving 32 and 33 to after 24. Lee's motion, if I understood it, was to move 32 to after 24.
Correct.
Okay. I'll second that.
Okay, discussion. I'm just taking a breath because I don't know how I'm voting on this one.
After this, if it fails, I'm going to make the first motion I made, which is to accept the staff. There's another voter here.
Yeah, that's fine. So roll call vote on this, Garfield.
Aye.
Eric.
No.
Ed.
No.
Lee.
Aye.
And I'll vote aye on this because I do think two reasons. I think that one is that by setting precedent and moving the citizens petition tonight will create havoc down the road. And number two is the citizens petition are well-organized people. They can move that at the town meeting. So I think that will be fine. So it passes. Okay. Where am I? Citizen speak time. Seeing no hands up, it's select board time. So I'll start with Eric.
I'm all set this time. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Garfield.
Just that I would love to see this go to the town for the townspeople to make a decision.
Yeah, that's what we decided tonight. Yes, I agree. Ed.
Nothing, just I would invite the press to try and find out what is meant by workforce housing, since I couldn't find out tonight. And so put it in the articles you write.
Lee.
Workforce housing, Ed, when we talk about area median income, generally that's based on area median income. So anything with affordable housing is generally from 30% to 60%. And workforce housing generally is anywhere from 60% or 80% up to 120%. So when we're talking about area median income of Great Barrington, we're talking about housing that generally the workforce is able to live in, as opposed to residences that have been turned into commercial operations. So we're giving our workforce an ability to rent and establish neighborhoods rather than have to rent short-term rentals just to live in their community. So that's what we're talking about, Ed.
I was looking for a number, but thank you.
I just gave you a number. I talked about the area median income.
How much is the rent?
80%.
Right.
Well, I'm sure that you can look that up.
Thank you.
Okay, I have nothing. Media time. By unanimous consent, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.